Hey everybody, today we're debating is Islam true? And we are starting right now with Nadir's opening statement. Thanks for being with us. Nadir, the floor is all yours.
Thanks. Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry about that. There's a lot of noise coming here. Sorry about that.
No problem. If you
Okay,
haven't
there we
yet,
go.
hit that like,
Yeah,
folks. We do appreciate that support. Ready for you.
all right. Thank you. I'm ready to go now. All right. So the debate topic here is Islam true? Well, I think for this debate, I'm going to be presenting evidence from both science as well as history and comparing it with really what the Bible teaches and what the Quran teaches on the exact same issue. I'm just going to share my screen if I may, just so I can, just give me 1 second here, and you'll see what I'm talking about here.
Okay, we're
Um,
ready for you.
okay, so this is very interesting. If you look at Islam and Christianity, they talk about the same things. Both Jesus and Muhammad talked about mustard seeds, alcohol, washing hands before eating, remarriage, epilepsy, and who killed Jesus. Now that's interesting. It looks like one is just doing a copy job of the other. But what you're going to find in this debate tonight is that Islam gives very different answers on all these questions. And and the reason why is because it's answering the question how you can know Islam to be true by just comparing the teachings. So let's see who does a better job. And based on what I'm basing that off of is at the top here. Choose the best answer based on the real world outcomes and observable consequences between these two books. So they both, both the Bible and the Quran, they talked about who killed Jesus. Well, the Bible says that it was actually the Jews who killed Jesus. Over here inside 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 14. It states the Jews killed Jesus, but the Quran teaches the Jews did not kill Jesus inside chapter 4, verse 157. So what could be the problem here? That, accusing an entire group of people of the worst sin possible. This is called deicide, the killing of God. Well, the Holocaust. I don't know if you know this, but the New Testament, this specific passage, the Holocaust scholars have talked a lot about this. And based on their research, this is one of the root causes of the Nazi Holocaust. So the Quran comes 600 years later and removes this theological driver of hate. So let's take a look at some references just to back up everything I'm saying. I'm quoting the Holocaust Encyclopedia, all right? It states over here, the false charge that the Jews killed Jesus. I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you. There you go. The false charge that the Jews killed Jesus was one of the root causes of the Holocaust. Again, I'm quoting the Holocaust Museum. Let's go to Yad Vashem. It's a museum in Israel. If you ever get a chance, this is the building right here. You can go take a look at it. It states over here that one of the roots of Nazism is actually biblical Christianity. It says Christian anti-Judaism. What are they talking about? This is a video I'm quoting from Roots of Nazi Ideology. This is this is coming from Holocaust scholars, not my words. This is not coming from jihadalakbar.com, okay? And let us see what they say. The Jewish belief that the Jews were accused of deicide. Deicide is the belief in the killing of God, which is exactly what 1 Thessalonians teaches. So now that creates something called the Christian dilemma. Okay, now I know what you're thinking here. Well, those Christians just misinterpreted the Bible. This has nothing to do with interpreting the Bible. This is about inciting hatred. And that is, so it has nothing to do with interpretation. And I know you're thinking, well, we can't believe all the blame goes on those ignorant believers. Yeah, some of the blame goes on the ignorant believers, but not all, because the Bible was guilty of introducing an idea while knowing it will likely cause harm or serious problems, and so by a certain degree, it will bear some of the responsibility for that. Go ahead and put this in your chat GPT, what I'm underlining, and it will all say, yes, that's exactly right. So this is the Christian dilemma. If we make the assumption that Prophet Muhammad is a false prophet from Satan, and the Quran explicitly states that Jews did not kill Jesus, thus removing the stigma and theological hostility. It reduced one of the major drivers of religious hatred. If you go through the Islamic world and you look at the entire history of Islam, what won't you find? You will not find Jews being persecuted or killed because they're Christ killers or because of anything taught in the Quran. You will not find that, but you will find that in the Bible. How can we reconcile an alleged false prophet correcting a correction that brought a certain level of peace into the world, while God's word allegedly, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 14, 16, the accusation against the Jews of deicide brought persecution into the world. So it wasn't just the Holocaust, it was 2,000 years of suffering and persecution. It is not an interpretation, but rather the explicit teaching. Post-Holocaust reinterpretations don't work because it ignores the reality. So it goes on stating over here, how does this make sense? And you can go ahead and put this in your chat GPT. I'll do it at a later time, but I want you to do it. Because of course it could be biased towards me. You do it at home and you'll see that the assumption Muhammad being a false prophet in light of the good it brought to the world, correcting the evil, the sinister evil unleashed upon mankind by the teachings of the Bible, this assumption doesn't make sense. That's all I'm trying to prove here. So I'm going to underline this, and my opponent is going to have to make sense of that. Let me underline that for you in light of this evidence. So let's take a look. We're going to find out that the misery and suffering doesn't stop there. Let us go look at, let me go to scorecard. Who killed Jesus? I'm sure you'll agree, based on real-world outcomes, Islam gave the better answer. So I'll go ahead and give the answers to the Quran and Hadith over there. I'm sure my opponent will not object on that one. Okay. Let us, now both Muhammad and Jesus talked about alcohol. And what we find out now is that just drinking just even a little bit of alcohol, there's no safe limit, basically. People say, oh, it's good for your heart. The overall harm of alcohol outweighs any good. And here we have, if you see these children on your screen here, these are children who have fetal alcohol syndrome because their mother drank some alcohol while they were pregnant. And we now know from science, I'm going to go and show you, I know this is really small, let me make this a little bigger. Oh, let me go back there. We know that Muslim women are 50 times less likely to give birth to a fetal alcohol child. Let's go and look at that study which I was quoting from, as compared to Christians. So what the study says, you got to go to the Christians. That's where you're going to find this disease, a fetal alcohol syndrome. So here we see yet another example. Again, I'm not here to show, look, Bible contradicts science. That's not the issue here. The issue here is who's giving the better answers on these issues. Well, I don't think there's any question about it, that Islam is giving the better answer on alcohol. Now, remember, when I say this is a better answer, here's a study I'm quoting from, in case you want to just hit pause on your YouTube screen. I'm quoting from a European child of adolescent psychiatry. Now, when I say Islam gave the better answer, I'm talking about it in a period of time when we didn't know the effects of alcohol on the pregnant woman or on children. So in this period of time, then there's no doubt that the right answer is you shouldn't drink any alcohol. So in addition to that, the Quran also gave another scientifically correct statement. Science tells us today that the overall harm outweighs any good. Here's the study I'm quoting from. It states over here, they have some benefit for the people. I'm sorry, this is the study I'm quoting from. This is from CNN. It states over here, many studies have shown that the overall health risks of drinking alcohol outweighs any benefits, I'm sorry. The Quran, word for word, states this. It says they have some benefit for the people, but their harm far greater than their benefits. Two scientifically correct statements. So in correcting the teaching of the Bible, how many scientifically correct statements? We find two. So the argument, oh, well, other people condemned alcohol in history doesn't work because nobody in history made two scientifically correct statements. Now let's look at a third. Inside the following, this is from Ibn Umar, he's narrating from the Prophet, he said, whoever drinks khamr, which is alcohol, and does not get intoxicated, his salah will not be accepted so long as any trace of it remains in his belly or his veins. In his alcohol in the veins? That was only discovered until recently. So, in this one correction, what my opponent will have to answer for me is how do you explain Muhammad, an alleged prophet, if you say the false prophet, an alleged false prophet made 3 scientifically correct statements in correcting one mistake of the Bible. That is not humanly possible. Only a God can make 3 scientifically correct statements. So again, my argument is not that, oh, look, the Quran condemns alcohol because other people have condemned alcohol, but nobody has made 3 scientifically correct statements in its so-called condemnation. So let's go to our scorecard and let's go ahead and check mark. Islam gave the better answer on alcohol. Let's go to the virginity test. Now, we all know from science there's no such thing as a virginity test. There's no way you can test a person's virginity. That is ridiculous and it is silly because we know that there are some women who are born without a hymen. There are some women who break it just doing exercise. So that's stupid. And then, of course, you get sexually abused women. In Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 17, it tells us that basically to perform a virginity test. I won't go too much in detail on that because I want to show you the Islam's position. This says, the most wicked among you, among the people, in the eyes of Allah, on the day of judgment is a man who goes to his wife and she comes to him and then he divulges her secret. Well, what took place in that bedroom, whether there's blood or no blood. There's no virginity test in Islam. Now, you find some ignorant, stupid Muslims who might do that stupid stuff, but what the prophetic hadith clearly states here, there is no such thing. So, and science has made it very clear that virginity tests are absolutely barbaric and they're stupid. I won't even show you the references. Maybe I might show you one. Let me see. I can't find it. But anyways, if my opponent has some questions about it, I'll show you the scientific reference for that. So let's go to the scorecard. Virginity test. Islam gave the better answer. So now we know why Islam is talking about the same talking points as the New Testament or the Bible. It's correcting the mistakes. So how bad is this going to get? Both Jesus of the New Testament and Islam both talked about washing hands. When these people came up to Jesus, the story in the Bible, really very funny story. They said, let's get the verse in front of us over here. It says, they don't wash their hands before they eat. They're complaining about his disciples not doing it. So basically, to make a long story short, Jesus puts up this huge argument. No, you don't understand. This is just tradition. You shouldn't follow man's tradition. Obviously, this is an act of stupidity when someone's telling you wash your hands before you eat, because the CDC states very clearly here, hand washing is a healthy habit before you eat. Before eating, you need to wash your hands, please, especially when you're dealing with manure and things like that. You can catch a tapeworm. The Prophet Muhammad in his authentic hadith states, which I can find it over here. It states over here that a messenger of Allah wanted to sleep. While he was in junub, he would perform wudu, and when he wanted to eat, he would wash his hands. The very thing Jesus was complaining about, allegedly. And by doing so, the Prophet of Islam wins the recognition of the scientific community. A second recognition we see in today's debate. Efficacy of hand washing and soap and nail clipping, which is also taught in Islam. And so we can see from this article, Science Today. Let's see. I'm sorry. Let me get to you the article. I can't find it here, actually. Here we go. The WHO actually praises Islam in the following article. Okay, World Health Organization, the state over here. The Prophet Muhammad always urged Muslims to wash hands frequently and especially after some clearly defined tasks. So let's go to our scorecard. Who did the better job on washing hands before eat? Prophet of Islam. So I only got one more minute here, but I think you can see what's happening here. Islam is reversing the sinister, evil effects which was unleashed upon mankind by the teachings of the New Testament, from fetal alcohol syndrome to the death of 6 million Jews and 2,000 years of suffering and persecution of pogroms, all taught because of that one verse in the Bible. And of course, washing hands. Now, unfortunately, my time is up, so I can't go through all these other categories. But I think the 4 categories that we see on our screen is enough to draw the conclusion that yes, Islam is true, and the Prophet Muhammad proved it by basically giving better answers on these subjects than with the Bible. So what my opponent needs to do, he needs to come up and say, no, the Bible, the Islamic answers are inferior. They're not good. He needs to do
1
this.
minute left.
Uncheck mark this and check mark Bible, or just uncheck mark it in some way and tell us why these are not better teachings. If he cannot do so, then you should be rest assured that Islam is a true religion. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you very much for that opening. We are going to kick it over to Fearless Truth for his opening as well. But first, a couple of quick housekeeping things. First, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, Dr. James Coons. We are a fully neutral debate platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button as we have many more debates coming up. Subscribe below. With that, we're going to kick it over to Fearless Truth. Thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours for your 15-minute opening as well.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
You got it. I'm ready for you.
All right, let me get the tab up here.
If you haven't yet, folks, hit that like button. We do appreciate your support. Hitting that like button does help.
All right, can you see it properly?
Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. So I'm gonna make this opening pretty short and sweet to the point because I'm very excited to get to the rebuttals and the cross exam, because after that opening, I have a lot of things to say. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, the debate is Islam true? Now, what are the claims of Islam? To actually be able to defeat Islam, we need to know what the actual claims are. First of all, Islam claims that it is the revelation from Allah. It claims that Muhammad is a true prophet, and it is the final revelation amongst others that were already given by Allah. Now, some things we need to consider here when we're talking about whether or not it's from God and the Quran is from God and Islam in general is from God. We need to think, okay, number one, is it historical? Does it have some sort of historical basis, or does it go against science? Number two, does it show proper continuity with the previous prophets? Is Muhammad in agreement with these other revelations that already occurred? And number three, is it logical? Starting off with, is it historical? Well, we see that the earliest sources for Jesus' crucifixion, we have things like John Meyer's A Marginal Jew, which is going to be the one of the quote-unquote accurate transmissions of the Antiquities of the Jews by Josephus. Many people claim that some of the antiquities were sort of messed with and tampered with. But here I give you a version that is widely recognized by scholars as the most accurate transmission, which indeed does talk about Jesus' crucifixion. Also, in Tacitus in the Annals, book 15, he as well speaks about the crucifixion of Christ. So in some of the earliest sources that we have Christ being crucified. We have people that are neutral saying he was crucified, and Josephus was actually a Jew. So he was more than neutral, and he said that Christ was crucified. Now, what he's going to have to show is that these people were wrong and that he has some other historical basis besides the Quran, because just using the Quran is circular. So he's going to have to show more things than the Quran that show his claims that these things are actually historical. Now, the next thing is, does it have proper continuity with the previous prophets? So in basic syllogistic format, premise one, if a prophet is a true prophet, he must be in agreement with the previous prophets. Premise two, Muhammad is not in agreement with the previous prophets. Conclusion, Muhammad is not a true prophet. Now the question is, how do we prove that, right? How do we show that he is actually not in continuity with the previous prophets? Well, if Muhammad came up to you in the 6th to 7th century and he said he was the last prophet in line with the rest of the prophets, how do we confirm he's actually this prophet? Well, we would go to the previous prophets and we'd see, do they actually match up? So let's see if they match up here. Here are just some of the prophets that Muhammad contradicts. For example, Isaiah says the Messiah will die for the sins of the people and he will be cut off from the land of the living. That's Isaiah 53. Zechariah says the Messiah will be God. That's Zechariah 12, where Yahweh himself says they will look on me whom they pierced. Micah says that the Messiah will be eternal. Micah chapter 5, it talks about how his days will be from everlasting. David says the Messiah will be from God. That's Psalms 45, where he claims that he is God himself. Now, is it logical? So here's another basic syllogistic format here is premise 1, if the Quran is the word of God, then the Trinity is polytheism. Premise 2, the Trinity is not polytheism. Conclusion, the Quran is not the word of God. So guess what? He is going to have to show that for some reason, the Trinity actually falls into polytheism. And I would love to see how that happens and see how we can figure out if it's actually polytheism or not. Here's something my opponent may try to argue that I predicted correctly. He may try to argue scientific miracles. And so to that, I answer, if this is the determination of prophethood, then the writer of the Edwin Smith Papyrus must be a prophet, as is one of the earliest known works to be completely in line with scientific discovery, as well as every other scientific discovery before then that are accurate to the core. They all must be prophets according to that. Now, what if the scientific miracles were true, right? Let's say that they were true. Even if Muhammad got every scientific miracle or every scientific prediction correct, if he's not in continuity with the previous prophets, it automatically rules him out of being a true prophet, and there must be some other answer, right? So if he goes against them, if he is in complete disagreement with what the previous prophets said, he at the very least is not in line with those prophets or from the same God that those prophets are from. So he's going to have to say either 1, that these other prophets weren't from God, or 2, Muhammad isn't from God, or 3, which would be the final and only logical conclusion, that God himself contradicted himself. So we'll see what answer he comes up with. I'm excited to get into the rebuttals and cross-exam, and with that, I can see the rest of my time.
Thank you very much for that opening. We will kick it into the rebuttals and want to give you a couple quick housekeeping things. First, folks, if you did not know, I'm putting a link for our insiders list in the live chat right now. It's also in the description box. This is so you know when DebateCon will happen next. That's Modern Day Debate's official conference, and DebateCon is happening this summer. We basically have the date. We're about to send that out to our insiders list. So join that insiders list now so you can get promo codes for discounts on tickets, as well as word before everybody else on when and where DebateCon will be. That, we're going to jump into the rebuttals, which are 10 minutes apiece. The floor is all yours, Nadir. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, so the big joke here is that he ended quite early. You should have taken that time to respond to the points which I've presented to you. It's almost like he was absent. Okay, so this is going to be a long night for him. Now, I'm going to do my best to address all the objections. If I miss one, it's not because that Islam is wrong. It's just on me. Maybe I missed something or something like that. So let me start. He says there's no continuity with the prophets inside the Bible is basically what he's quoting. Well, there's a very simple answer to that. The Bible is wrong. What the Bible says on the issue of alcohol is wrong. This is one of the many errors in your book, and the Quran is correcting it. So there is a clear continuity. It's just that you have errors in your book, like the virginity test. No true prophet is going to tell his followers to do a virginity test in the Bible, which you see there. And that passage, I'll have to find it for you. But so these are clear mistakes in your Bible, which the Quran and Islam is correcting. So you also talked about you want to see historical evidence for the crucifixion. I can show it to you, but I think the crucifixion has been already debunked. I'm going to share my screen here. The story of the crucifixion is an evil, wicked, sinister story. It is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews and 2,000 years of persecution and suffering. Don't listen to me. Every Holocaust scholar, academic has talked about that. I showed you, from the Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem, the list goes on. So you said you have to disprove it historically. I could disprove it historically if you push me to, but I don't think I need to because you forgot about something called evil. It is you have to also factor in the fact that could this be a satanic corruption in your book? A true book of God shouldn't be responsible for bringing such death, suffering, and misery into the world. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, no, it's just the ignorant believers who misinterpreted. This has nothing to do with interpretation. This is about incitement, inciting hate in people. That verse about where it says the Jews killed Jesus, it makes people angry. Very angry, as we now know from history. Islam came and removed this theological driver of hate and brought peace, compassion, prosperity into the world. I have issued the challenge. Where do you see any kind of, where Jews, if you go to Israel today, it is literally littered with refugee camps of throwing those Arabs and Muslims out of their homes, and this is where they've been languishing. In our Islamic history for 1,000 years, where do you see any of that? You don't. You don't, because of the peace, because Islam removed this theological hate from our beliefs. So let's go ahead and let's ask. So I asked the question here. If we make the assumption, now this is just basically going to ChatGPT, and I want you to also do this. I want you to take this paragraph and put it in ChatGPT, and let's see what responses you get. So my argument here is, oh, look, AI says it's okay. No, that's not what I'm saying here, okay? If we make this assumption that Muhammad is a false prophet from Satan, and in light of the fact, and the Quran explicitly states that the Jews did not kill Jesus, thus removing the stigma and theological hostility, it reduced one of the major drivers of religious hatred. So how can you reconcile an alleged false prophet correction that brought a certain level of peace into the world, while God's word, allegedly, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 14, the accusation against the Jews of deicide brought persecution into the world? Okay, this is not about interpretation. This is about explicit reading of the text. It's about incitement. Post-Holocaust reinterpretations don't work. So I keep going on over here. The verse is not being blah, 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 but rather it's generating hate, thus causing the problem. The fact remained that Christianity did indeed plant a murderous theological seed that Islam, in this one specific area, uprooted. So then I finally asked, in light of this fact, does the initial assumption make sense? Yes or no? That Muhammad is a false prophet. How does it make sense? Let's go and let's take a look at what the AI basically stated here. No. From ChatGPT, no. Within a Christian theology, blah, 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 blah. You can read this? No. And I want you to, again, do it on your side so that there's no biasness at all. So this is a good one from Gemini. No. At least not within the framework that requires a perfect alignment of moral outcomes with divine origins. Okay? And let's go to Grok. No. This initial assumption does not make sense, as it creates an irreconcilable paradox where a purportedly satanic deception fosters peace by alleviating anti-Semitic stigma. Okay, it doesn't make sense. Now, that's just AI. It could be wrong. It could be wrong. That's what you're coming here for, Fearless Truth. You are going to tell us how AI, and of course, this whole argument is where they got it wrong, because of course it could be wrong. It's wrong a lot. Sure, no problem. It could be biased towards me, but explain this to us. You asked about the crucifixion. This is why you should reject the crucifixion, because it is an evil, wicked, sinister story. Now, if you have any doubts about that, I will pay for your airfare. You're from Ohio. I will pay and give you 5-star accommodations. And we will go to any Jewish temple in this country, including the pro-Israeli ones, and they will all agree with me. They will say that story in your book is evil and wicked, and it needs to be purged. Judaism is unanimous upon that, by the way. So this is not just a Nadir Ahmed argument. This is what has been endorsed by all of Judaism, as well as the Holocaust scholars. This one evidence alone disproves, what you believe and proves Islam to be true. Okay, so I answered your contradicting previous prophets. The Quran is correcting the errors in your book. So one last point, I know what you're thinking, that, well, no, it's the believers who are responsible for the Holocaust. No, it's the Bible responsible because it introduced the idea. Introducing an idea while knowing it will likely cause harm or serious problems does create some degree of moral responsibility for foreseeable outcomes, true or false. Copy this and put it in your chat GPT or whatever, and it'll all say true. So there's no way you can absolve 100% responsibility from the sinister teachings of the New Testament. And this is why we say Islam is a religion of peace. So let's go back to
2 minutes left.
one of the arguments I brought forth, that the whole issue about fetal alcohol syndrome. I've pointed out that that in its correction, do you remember those 3 scientifically correct statements? Do not drink alcohol. Alcohol exists in the veins. That was only discovered recently. BAC, blood alcohol concentration. And the harm of it outweighs any good. In Muhammad, the Islam's correction of the Bible, it made 3 scientifically astonishingly correct statements. How does a mere human being do that? And is the Bible responsible for those fetal alcohol children? Yes. Yes. Because it administered a drug to a general population of people. So don't say stupid things like, well, the Bible didn't tell pregnant women to drink. It administered a drug to the general population, which included women and children, and it didn't warn them of the side effects. It didn't warn them that this is going to happen, that the bad things could happen. So now we can look at it from a legal perspective as well. The Bible does bear responsibility for administering this drug. Okay, so there is no doubt at this point, from a scientific point of view, moral point of view, historical point of view, that Islam is the true religion. Now, I've only given you, what I've given you in terms of the scientific evidence is just a drop in the bucket. There's a far more scientific evidence, but I feel like this is enough. I don't have time to really get into all of that, but there's more. So if you feel like, well, I need more evidence, that's no problem. I can go ahead and give you that. So the question I have for you then tonight, which is a part of the Christian dilemma, how do you explain an alleged false prophet saving millions of children from fetal alcohol syndrome, while the true Lord and Savior, which you believe in, let them perish? That doesn't make sense. It's like, I give you an analogy, it's like a child is choking and Jesus is just watching him choke. And then Muhammad comes and, oh my God, what's going on? And rescues and saves that child. Explain that to us. A false prophet doesn't do that.
We're at time. With that, we will switch it over to the rebuttal from Fearless Truth as well, and housekeeping stuff. Folks, if you didn't know, Modern Day Debate has a Discord. Check out that link in the description box, as well as I'm going to pin it at the top of the chat. Join 15,000 members in the Discord. Enter the debate arena via that link right now. With that, Fearless Truth, thanks for being with us. Floor is yours for your rebuttal.
All right, guys, I'm very excited to get into this rebuttal. So we had multiple statements. First of all, I'll start off, I wrote down all the notes on everything he said. Number one, he said I should have taken the time in my opening to respond to him. That's literally not what an opening's for. You don't respond to people's opening in an opening. That's why I didn't respond, even if there was time left. That's simply not what you do. All you showed me was the scholars in the Holocaust and that it was evil and the Bible caused this. But whether or not this thing was actually evil proves nothing about whether or not it is historical. Proves nothing. Even if it was completely and utterly evil, well, guess what? First of all, that's subjective. We have to prove objective epistemology and morals and ethics first. And secondly, it has nothing to do with whether or not it actually happened. Also, you said Islam uprooted the hatred for Jews, which is interesting because if you actually read Sahih Bukhari 29:26, it says the hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews. And the stone behind which a Jew is hiding will say, oh, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him. So interesting that Islam uproots the hatred for Jews, but it literally says the hour that you get to heaven won't come until you go and fight the Jews. So who's really inciting violence on Jews here? It seems like Islam. He gave up whether or not that the fact that Muhammad gave better answers in the Bible means it's from God. Whether or not Muhammad gave better answers has nothing to do with whether or not it is from God. He could give all the better answers. Guess what? It doesn't mean that Islam is from God. He brought up quotes from Yad Vashem's YouTube, a Jewish Holocaust program, saying the Jews didn't do what the Bible said. No duh. It's literally a Jewish YouTube Holocaust channel based in Jerusalem. Of course, they're going to defend Jews and say it didn't actually happen. Wow, I am shocked, guys. Who would have guessed that? Also, he brought the fact that Muhammad brought Jews peace. That's fine, even if he brought them peace, because according to Islam, there will be a time where they will fight with them. So that's not going to last forever. He said the alcohol harm outweighs the benefit. Well, first of all, this is subjective. Whether or not something's harm outweighs a benefit is entirely subjective on the individual and what they consider to be a better benefit than a harm. So how on earth could this prove it's from God if it's a subjective claim? There's no way it can. Also, it depends on the alcohol. It says, oh, you cannot drink any alcohol, but there are plenty alcohols that we could say actually that the positives outweigh the negatives. For example, champagne. If we actually read when we talk about, for example, mayoclinic.org is one of them, where it talks about how champagne is one of the best alcohols to actually have, and it has a lot of benefits, and it does not have any added risk. It says, and I quote, overall research suggests that those who drink regular limited amounts of alcohol, including red wine, seem to have no added risk or even a lower risk of heart disease, stroke, sudden death, possibly heart failure, etc. And so this has absolutely no bearing on whether or not it's from God either. He said this, in which I wrote down verbatim is what he said. This was hilarious. He said, only a God can make 3 scientifically correct statements. And I quote, okay, then the owner of the Edwin Smith papyrus, the author of that, must be from God. Guess what, guys? The owner of that papyrus must be from God, because he very clearly made 3 scientifically correct statements, and we can't find any incorrect statements in there. So guess what, guys? We have a new prophet, and that's just one. Imagine all the others. So guys, we have brand new prophets every day. This is amazing. He brought up hand washing. Everyone knew hand washing was good. The point of Jesus bringing that up as to why he didn't believe it was good was saying that it didn't need to be done as a ritual practice. It didn't need to be done as a tradition. Not that it shouldn't be done at all, but it needed to be done as a ritual. But whether or not he got that wrong still doesn't make the Quran true. Also, he said, he talked about how there was errors in our book. Well, if there's errors in our book, how do you know that the prophet was actually in continuity? You say you know the prophet was in continuity. Well, I rebuttal and ask, how on earth do you know that the prophet was truly in continuity if there was errors? Which parts do you decide were true? Which do you decide was false, etc.? We have literally no clue. So again, to kind of go back to everything that we've already said, we have him saying things are scientifically true. Again, those things a lot of them are just subjective in the first place, so it doesn't matter. Number 2, he's bringing up Jews to say that the Jews didn't have the Holocaust. No duh, of course they're going to say that. He didn't bring up any sort of actual historical source showing that the Jews didn't kill Jesus. Not one, not a single historical source. All he brought was people today, like Jews, saying it didn't happen. And so, so I think that we've seen no real evidence yet that the Islam is truly from God. And hopefully in the cross exam, we can see some better things.
You got it. We will go into the cross exams indeed. So these will be 15 minutes apiece. Quick housekeeping note. If you haven't checked it out yet, folks, check out the Modern Day Debate Facebook page where you can find juicy clips from all these debates. I'm going to link that at the top of the chat, and it's in the description box. But the timer is set for 15 minutes. This is meant to be intentional. In other words, each person getting their 15 minutes to ask the person questions. The other person who's answering the questions is meant to only answer, so they're not meant to ask a question back. With that, Nadir will give you a chance to cross-examine Nick, aka Fearless Truth.
Okay, I need to confront you on some of your misinformation. Actually, all of it was misinformation. You said some very stupid things, and I'm going to share my screen here for you. Okay, because what it was basically, It was a misrepresentation of what science says. I'm going to quote for you this article over here. This is from CNN. No amount of alcohol is good for your overall health, global study says. Do you not read? I read this to you, and it seems like it just went over your head. Many studies have shown that the overall health risk of drinking alcohol outweighs any benefits. This is word for word agreement with what we see in the Quran. They have some benefits for the people, but their harm is far greater than their benefits. Do you understand that the overall harm outweighs any of the benefits you cited of champagne? Do you understand that?
No, I disagree, and I think that
Okay, you're
is
too
going to be
stupid. Let's go to the next point. So the next question, which I have for you, is, I've pointed out, you try to point out to something about Edwin Smith's papyrus. I don't know what he wrote here, but the issue which I'm challenging you here is on one correction. Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, made 3 scientifically correct statements.
I just want to be sure
the
you're
blood
asking
is in the
questions,
veins.
Nadir.
Yeah. So my question is, how can a mere human being, in correcting an issue, make 3 scientifically correct statements without making an error? Go ahead.
Yes, the same way that the author of the Edwin Smith papyrus.
Okay, show it to us. Just don't make claims. Show it to us. What are you talking about?
I want to.
Yes.
Yeah,
so the Edwin Smith papyrus, it was authored by someone around 800.
No. Share your screen. Don't just tell a story. Share your screen and show us what you're talking about.
You want me to?
Nadir, I do want to give him a chance to answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can pull it up, I guess, but
yeah, you need to.
It's just, okay, sure. The Edwin Smith papyrus is basically something that was authored way back in the day, and it is something in which they talked about how the different bone structures are.
Okay, I don't have time for this. So if you don't have the evidence ready to share, then let's move on to the next one.
Obviously, that's Smith papyrus.
That's silly. That's silly. But the issue tonight, where I think you have failed tonight. Remember, I was showing you the criteria. I mean, for you to win this debate, really, you got to show. Remember the check marks? I showed how Islam did a better job. You are not able to show no. The answers on alcohol are not better. The challenge I presented to you is, okay, let's pretend there's a time when we don't know about FAS and the effects it has to children before 1972. The answer which Islam gave that you shouldn't drink any alcohol at all if the people don't know about this stuff. So I'm going to challenge you right now. Explain to me how from a scientific point of view, how the Bible's answers is better than the Christian answer. Go ahead.
Whether or not the Bible is better than the Islamic answer doesn't make Islam true.
So you were not able to. Okay, so we have seen that you have conceded that the Islamic answer on alcohol is a better answer.
How does that prove it's from God?
Okay, so but whether you can draw the conclusion of whether it can be from God or not, we could talk about that later. But also,
that's the point of the debate.
Okay, we'll sum what I'm pointing out. I'll sum it up in just a second here. So now going back to your misinformation, as I've pointed out, I quoted to you the American Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem, and every Holocaust scholar has talked about 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 16, that this verse is responsible for creating hatred and malice toward the Jewish people, which basically led to the Holocaust. So in response to the Holocaust scholars, and I pointed out, how could a loving God write something so evil in his book? Go ahead.
Yeah, because I don't think that just because something is evil makes it false. I agree. I think that this happened. Now, what happens from this, right, is based on the people after it. But all that's happening is they're writing down historical fact. There's no issue with that.
Oh, well, they're just writing down historical facts. They just happened to kill 6 million Jews. That's your response?
Yeah. So just because people do a bad
I
thing,
overlooked the 6 million Jew fact. Yeah.
I want to give him a chance.
Historical, guys.
I want to get you supposed to be questions.
Okay, go ahead, dummy.
Okay. Yeah. Just because people do bad things because of a historical fact doesn't make the historical fact false.
Mm-hmm. But introducing an idea while knowing it will likely cause harm or serious problems does create some degree of moral responsibility for the foreseeable outcomes, true or false.
Yes, absolutely, and that doesn't
Then
make
the
it
Bible
historically
is
false.
responsible for the death of 6 million Jews. Thank you.
Does that make it Wait, would that make it historically false?
Well, well, we can now ask the question. Now, you wanted historical evidence. I'll give you historical evidence when you cross-examine me, if that's really your issue here. But so it's like the question which the AI was not able to resolve. This premise about Muhammad being a false prophet, it doesn't make sense. Grok, AI, and I'm going to give you an opportunity because that's just what AI is saying. I said, is this premise true? If we make the assumption Muhammad is a false prophet of Satan, and the Quran explicitly stated that the Jews did not kill Jesus, thus removing the stigma of theological hostility. So this doesn't make any sense. How do you explain an alleged false prophet, bringing peace into this world while the true, I guess, religion brought so much hatred and malice into the world? How do you explain that?
Oh, I don't think he did. I think when you actually look at the hadith, such as the one I read, he literally says we won't even have judgment day
No,
until
the
you start
hadith has
fighting.
nothing to do with what I'm asking you. Now, you just said, oh, I don't think it did. I have just shown you the Holocaust Memorial. I've shown you Yad Vashem. Every Holocaust scholar has
A bunch of
made
Jews.
it very clear. So my question to you is, are you going to reject all the historians while you're going to accept the so-called history for the crucifixion?
Yeah, the only thing that you've done is show me Jews defending Jews. Jewish sites
They are
such
not
as
Jews
Yad Vashem.
defending Jews. I'm quoting for you the culminate. Again, you're misunderstanding
isn't
the
Jews?
evidence. Okay, you're misunderstanding the evidence which is being presented to you. This is not because Jews said so. Okay, keep that anti-Semitism to yourself. I'm quoting the American Holocaust Museum, which is a culmination of all academic scholars, whether Jew or Gentile, and they all, not just Jews, they all say that it was this verse which caused the Holocaust. Do you understand this is not just Jews?
Which source have you given that isn't run by Jews?
Okay, I will. Can I share my screen? Do you guys hear that noise? Hey guys, okay. I'm sorry about that. Okay, did you guys hear all that noise in the background?
No.
I apologize if you did. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen real quick here. I got sidetracked by all the commotion in the background here. So yeah, I quoted the American Holocaust Memorial. I quoted Yad Vashem. These are the two sources that I quoted. Did you want me to share that reference with you again?
Sure, you can do the United States Holocaust one. That's fine.
Okay. I wish you were paying attention when I first basically presented to you. Okay, so
I mean, just saying if you want, I'm saying you can show it again. It's up to you. I don't care.
Yeah, Pog. Let me get there. Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, I'm quoting for you. Blah 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 blah. Yad Vashem, we did that one. But they're Jews. That's why it's wrong. Here we go. This is the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. It states right here, the false charge that the Jews killed Jesus. Hey, they're agreeing with the Quran. I love it. Which reinforced in official Christian teaching. These are the roots of anti-Semitism. I also wanted to share with you, and now this is the Anne Frank. Let me go to Anne Frank. Anne Frank Foundation. Again, this is from Anne Frank. I know this is really small. Let me make this a bit bigger. It says here, Christians saw the Jewish faith as an aberration that needs to be squashed. And Jews were sometimes forced to, I can't even find my reference here. Never mind. Okay, so there you go. I quoted the United States Holocaust for Memorial Museum, but I also want to quote for you another good source here, or bad source, however you want to look at it. That is Adolf Hitler himself. He quoted First Thessalonians.
Nadir, this isn't meant to be. So
okay.
He asked you what your sources
can you
were
please correct? Will you correct yourself when you say it's only Jewish people who say this?
No, my entire point is just because people say that it's wrong what happened and that they use the Bible verses for this. Well, guess what? A lot of the times people use, for example, the slave Bible, right? To say that, okay, slavery is okay. Just because people use text in a wrong way doesn't make the text themselves
They're not using the text in the wrong way. It's an inciting hatred and anger in them.
I do
hatred
need
and
you to
anger
give
in
us
them.
these are meant
Yeah.
to be questions, Nadir. Man, so this is how it works. Like a question to be like, so
Oh,
where
I'm
did you
sorry.
find that source? And then they answer, and then you say,
Okay.
okay, and what year is it from? Like that.
Okay, so this is something, do you understand this is a culmination of all Holocaust
Okay,
scholars and
Nadir,
academics?
one thing is
Oh,
to just say something and then to just say afterwards, do you understand this is true? Is like it's a gray line where you're just taking a minute to make your case, and then you're
mhm,
saying, do you understand that to be true?
okay.
It's meant to kind of
All
cross-examine
right.
him, to put him in the pressure seat.
Okay. So let me see what else. So the question, uh I guess my question for you, James, real quick, is what kind of I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused in terms of what kind of questions I should be asking.
So I'm just I've noticed a pattern where it's commonly you'll kind of repackage what you said maybe in a previous statement, and then you'll go, do you understand that this is true? And it's kind of like it's okay if you, as long as you give them plenty of time to respond. But usually a cross exam would be where you're kind of
Okay.
trying to pin him down on something. But
Mhm.
we'll give you a chance,
Okay,
you can do it
I'll
however
ask
you want.
another question. There is a hadith which says, which the final, the final day will not come until the Muslims fight the Jews, until they're like hiding behind a bush and the Jew cries out, there's a Jew hiding behind me. Beautiful passage. This is my question for you is, when you look through the historical references, can you show me any instance of any of this teaching inciting hatred, which leads to violence or anger against the Jewish people? Can you show me one example of that?
No, I'm saying I think this is the historical reference that is saying that one day there will
One day it'll
be
happen.
inciting
Yes.
violence. Yes, absolutely.
Is that when is that the second coming? I'm sorry, second coming of Christ. So it'll be God who will be judging them, right?
No, this isn't saying God's going to be killing them. This is
Okay.
saying that
Yeah.
people will be.
You are obviously ignorant of the fact that this is a messianic prophecy, that this is when Jesus comes back in his next life. And that's what we say is that, when God comes, he will, or, when his messenger comes, he will judge the Jews. So I guess my question for you is, so when you look through the Quran and Hadith, you will never find any verse of the Quran which incited hatred, violence
How is this a
against, of course, you
question?
can never say never, but are you telling me you have no reference for that?
Yeah,
Unlike the Bible?
I just gave you a reference. It's literally saying that the rocks will cry out and you will go
That's
and kill
not the
them.
question I'm asking. Show me in history where the teachings of the Quran or Hadith incited violence against Jewish people or any other group of people.
Well,
Now,
the
I
second
can't say
coming,
it can never happen, but overall, would you agree pretty much not the case?
yeah, the second coming hasn't come yet, so of course it wouldn't
Okay,
happen
so up
yet.
till now, there is no instance that you know of that that this is happening. So, and we also talked about so I will go back to my question here. How can Muhammad be a false prophet when he removed this theological driver of hate and brought peace into the world, while the true God brought so much hatred and malice into this world?
Because it's historically inaccurate what happened.
What's historically inaccurate? What are you talking
That
about?
Jesus did not, in fact, die on the hands of the Jews is historically inaccurate.
Okay, so what you are saying here is that you don't give a bleep about what about the suffering this story caused, but you just say it's really historical, guys. It really did happen. I mean, that's what you're saying here today, right?
I care about facts.
Can
Yeah,
you see
I
how
don't want us to
evil?
lie on
Can you
facts.
see how evil this story is?
No, I don't think that it's evil to tell a historical fact.
Do you see the outcome of telling such a historical fact? What it did
Yeah,
to the
I
world?
don't. Yes, I don't think that the people that used it to commit violence against the Jews is right. That is wrong. That does not take away from
But
the
I
fact that
have
it is
a
historically accurate.
but it introduced this idea, so it bears some of the responsibility, which you just said, yes, that is true. I will read it for you again. Introducing an idea while knowing it will likely cause harm or serious problems does create some degree of moral responsibility. You said, yeah, that's true. Okay. So my question for you is, do you not see now how the New Testament does have some moral responsibility for introducing this idea?
No, again, just because it gives historical fact, that does not mean it
Okay,
incites
it gave
violence against
alleged.
them.
Let's just go along with it. It gave this alleged historical fact, but can you now see how it is responsible to a certain degree for the 2,000 years of pogrom, violence, and hatred toward the Jewish people? Can you see that?
No, stating historical fact doesn't mean you're responsible for
Okay,
the outcome
I'm
of what people
giving
do
you
because of
that. Let's just agree. I don't think it's true, but let's just give it to you. Fine, it's stating some historical fact, but by you stating this historical fact, you lack wisdom. You're a dumbass for stating that historical fact because
And we're
you
at
should have known
time.
about
Okay, so
what
this is meant
the
to be for
consequences this was
questions.
going to happen.
So this is meant to be for questions. And I'm gonna hold you to the same standard, Fearless Truth, where we'll
Yes,
have
of course.
15 minutes, and I really do want to press you guys strictly for questions. Fearless Truth, the timer's set for you.
Great. So the Quran says the Trinity falls into polytheism, and obviously, if that is false, the Quran is also false. So, can you demonstrate how the Trinity falls into polytheism?
Yeah, Jesus is not God. So if Jesus is not God, that means you're worshiping three gods. Simple.
Okay, can you show me how? I'm saying it says that if Jesus is God, then you fall into polytheism. It's not saying Jesus is not God. It's saying if he is God, it falls into polytheism. So, can you prove to me that it is polytheism if we believe that Jesus is God?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, first of all, you got to understand the Islamic perspective. Okay. The Islamic perspective is Jesus is not God. All this hypostatic union stuff that you guys believe in, that's all bogus. It's just stuff you're making up. And the burden of proof is upon the Christians to prove that Jesus is God. We don't have the burden of proof. Christians have never met the burden of proof. I'll give you an example. Like, if I am not God, but I don't need to show you any evidence that I'm not God, because the burden of proof is upon the person who claims to be God. Christians have never shown any proof that Jesus really is God other than quoting Bible verses. There you go.
Okay, you don't
It's been
understand the question.
disproved.
The question is when it's talking about, it's saying hypothetically, the Quran is saying hypothetically, if he is God, you would be a polytheist. It's that if you believe he's God, you fall into polytheism. So my question is not whether or not he's God. My question is, given the hypothetical that he is God, how does it fall into polytheism?
The Quran is not making any hypothetical claim about who Jesus is. Now, if you want to look at it hypothetically, that maybe Jesus is God, okay, if Jesus is God, then the Quran would be wrong. I would agree with you if it's hypothetically true. But the Christians have no evidence to support the claim that Jesus is God. They only quote Bible verses, and the burden of proof is upon the Christians to prove this. I don't have the burden of proof. We can agree there's one God. But these other entities that people are claiming to be God, the burden of proof is upon you guys. And so, therefore, the Quran is right, just like I am right when I tell you I'm not God and I didn't show you a lick of evidence. Why? Because by default, no man is God. So, based on this, the Quran is right.
Okay, so do you believe that the Quran claims that if Jesus was God, it would be polytheism?
If the Quran claimed Jesus is God, it would be polytheism. Correct.
Okay, great. Now, can you demonstrate how if Jesus is God, it would be polytheism?
Because you got God the Father, then you've got this other God, which is Jesus, who's really not God. So now you're worshiping two gods.
So, how does two different persons sharing the same divine nature fall into two gods? Because that's what the Trinity belief is.
Okay, so you want to talk about how Trinity. My suggestion for you is you should talk about,
I
is
don't need your
Islam really
suggestion. Can you
true?
just answer
Yeah.
the question?
Okay, so you want to know, okay, so what the Bible is doing, it's presenting more than one God. That's a statement of fact. But the wacky, quacky interpretation is that they're all one God. So if you just look at what is fact, what are the facts? The facts is that Christians presented three gods. Now, how they try to reconcile that they're not three gods, that's their wacky, quacky interpretation. So Islam is a fact-based religion. You go by what the facts are. You presented three gods, then then that means you worship three gods. Simple.
Okay, if the belief in the Trinity is that there are three distinct persons that have one nature and one operation of action, does that lead to polytheism?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, it
how?
does. Because it's just like a totem pole. You've got these three. Once you got three persons, okay, and that means you pretty much got three gods. The issue here is this is all a new teaching. Before the advent of Christianity, nobody believed in this stuff. Okay, so and in the wacky quacky world of Christianity, they reinterpret the Old Testament to read their three-headed God in there. But nowhere in the Old Testament or in the Jewish history Does it show any type of God, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost? So again, I would repeat, it's the burden of proof is upon the Christians to show that this is the true understanding of God. And reinterpreting the Old Testament and reading your God in there, that's a joke.
Okay, so you said that the three persons having one nature does fall into polytheism. Can you explain to me what the difference is between how you define person and nature?
Person and nature. Well, so I'm a different person than you, but you and I can have the same nature that we like to argue.
I'm asking, can you define person and nature?
Well, I don't think this is going to disprove Islam, but if that's what you want to talk about the Trinity, okay. So person is like, in terms of your essence, who I am, and nature is like some of your attributes. What are some of your attributes about yourself?
You don't think persons have attributes that are of their personhood?
A person has attributes of what?
You don't think that persons have their own attributes that aren't of their nature but are of their personhood?
I don't even know what that stuff means, though. See, from
Okay,
our
we'll move on.
perspective,
It's
from the
okay.
Islamic perspective, we don't need to get into any of this nonsense because the Quran clearly states that Jesus is not God, and the burden of proof is upon Christians
It's
to
okay.
show
We'll move
that he
on.
is God, and
It's
they
okay.
don't have any evidence.
It's okay. We'll move on. So
Yeah.
you stated that all science of Muhammad is miraculous. In Sahih al-Bukhari 5687, it says black cumin cures all diseases but death. My question would be, can you show us any studies or evidence that it cures, for example, sickle cell disease?
I'm sorry. Could you share your screen and share? And I just want to see the hadith in front of me. What you're quoting?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if
Yeah.
you paused the time for this or not, host, but I'm
Sure.
going to go ahead and pull it up
If
here.
you haven't yet,
Thank you.
folks,
Thank you.
hit that like button. I've got it paused for you, so pull that up. The like button does help a lot, folks. No joke. There's a poll in chat right now. It's what happens if you hit like. As of right now, first place is a random raccoon learns math. Second place is James will finally become a real man. We do appreciate that. Hit that like button. Ready for you, Fearless Truth.
Cool. I'll go ahead and read it. We went out to Gali bin Abjar, and I'm probably mispronouncing those, was accompanying us. He fell ill, and when we arrived in Medina, he was still sick. Ibn Abi Atik came to visit him and said to us, treat him with black cumin, take 5 or 7 seeds, crush them, mix the powder with oil, and drop the resulting mixtures in both nostrils. For Aisha has narrated to me that she heard the Prophet saying the black cumin is healing for all diseases except for death. He says, what is, except for Assam. Aisha said, what is Assam? He said death. What is the scientific evidence for this?
Well, I don't think there is any science against it or for it. We just don't know. Not enough research has been done on this subject.
I mean, so we know, though, as far as studies go, that there is zero evidence of this actually helping anything. And my question
where
would
is
be,
that study? Where is that study? I don't believe there's anything like that.
yeah, for example, sickle cell disease, we know that the only thing that can cure it is a bone marrow transplant.
Well, we don't
So
know.
my question would be,
We have never studied this cumin seed, well enough. But I think where we could really get down and say, oh, in no way does a black seed, which was mentioned over here, in no way it can help in any of these other diseases. There's just no evidence for that. It's an argument from silence is what you're presenting. But I think I have already presented to you clear scientific evidence that no human being could have done, which is 3 astonishing scientifically correct statements regarding alcohol, which you were not able to deal with.
Go ahead.
Sorry, James. Yeah, all right. I know what you're going to say. So the question is, if this is a historical or is a scientific fact, why don't we see more curing of this in Muslim countries using black seed oil?
Well, the issue here is we just haven't, done enough research on it, and in terms of its, application, I don't think we've even explored that. So I think this is just an untapped resource. But I don't think this is really going to disprove Islam, because listen to what the Prophet said, okay? In terms of and some of his recommendations, in terms of, and if you say, okay, well, this is the black seed oil is not working, or it's not working, therefore Islam is false. Can I share my screen over here real quick?
Yes.
I'm going to share my screen so I can share this hadith with you, because this will resolve everything. Are we pausing
the time, host, or?
Yeah. This will answer you, okay? It states over here.
Oh, so we pausing the time?
I'm a human being. No, this is
Yes.
part of the time. You answer me. He said, the prophet said, I'm a human being. So when I command you about things pertaining to religion, do accept it. And when I command you about things out of my own personal opinion, keep in mind that I'm only a human being. Okay. He also stated very clearly that, hey, listen, I also get information from the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians. So based on what they say, I'm also taking what the science of their time is. So if you feel like, okay, well, this is wrong, that's not going to disprove Islam. Okay. So here's the hadith which I'm quoting. I'm sorry. Can you read that? I know it's really small. I can make it bigger for you if you like. Would you like me to make that bigger for you?
But I consider
Okay.
yeah, I can read it, but
So listen here. What I'm showing you is what you're saying is not going to work. He says, listen, I intended to prohibit suckling during pregnancy.
Hold on a sec. You said that you were showing him what he was saying is not going to work, but this is meant to answer his questions, so not to rebut him as much.
Okay, so the point here is, look,
What was the
regarding the
original
Black
question,
Sea.
just to be sure we're on the same page? Nick, forgive me.
The original question is, why don't Muslim countries inhibit this black seed oil so we see less diseases?
Okay, Nadir, you're pulling up the Quran. Is it in the Quran, the answer to his
No,
question he just asked?
it's not in the Quran. It's not in the Quran, but I think it is an
Why are you
argument from
pulling up the
silence.
Quran?
I'm sorry, what's that? This is a hadith. So
Oh, sorry,
I'm
the
showing
hadith.
you
Okay, but
Muhammad's
why
overall position on
forgive me.
this.
Okay, is the answer in the hadith?
Well, the answer in terms of his recommendations is he's giving information on how to use his recommendations.
So I think you're saying yes in that, but I'm not sure.
Well, I can read to you what it says here. It says over here in the authentic hadith, I don't know if you can see that, it says, but I consider the Greeks and the Persians, and I saw that they practice it without any injury being caused to children. So what you need to understand is, look, not everything which the prophet is recommending is coming from God. He's saying, look, I'm going to the Greeks.
Hold on, but wasn't he
going to the
asking like
Romans.
what the explanation for why some Muslim countries do it? Like, I don't see how you're answering his question.
Well, all I'm saying is I don't know why we haven't delved more into the usage of black seed oil.
You don't know. We can move on.
Yeah, no. What I would say is that we don't. It is an untapped resource. Not enough research is out there. So I think we need to do more research on that issue. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, great. Move on to my next question.
Yeah.
Surah 19:7 states, John, the son of Zechariah, was the first to ever be named John. How is this the case when we have clear historical reference of others having the same name prior to him?
I'm sorry, what Quran verse are you talking about?
Surah 19:7.
Let me just pull it up for me real quick here. So the name there, well, I think you're reading English translation. It says there the name is Yahya. Yep. The name Yahya, which was not given to anybody before.
Yes, but it was. So
okay,
how do
I'm not aware of that.
I mean, yeah, we have multiple people named John before then. For example, John Hyrcanus.
No, Yahya. The name is
John,
Yahya.
John Hyrcanus is Yahya in Arabic. It's the same name.
I've never heard of anything like that. I'm sorry. You'll have to show me a reference. I don't think that's true.
Yes, the name John Hyrcanus, he was a Jewish high priest born in 164 BC. Prove that the Quran is false there, that he was the first one named Yahya.
Because this verse which we're quoting could be even before any instance of, well, first of all, I've never seen anybody named Yahya, but this could have been revealed even before then. So no, it doesn't make the Quran wrong. No, not at all.
Well, wait, but it wasn't. This is talking about John, the son of Zechariah. When was John, the son of Zechariah?
I don't know. It doesn't give any dates here. It doesn't give any dates.
He was born in the 1st century AD.
Where are you getting that from? I'm not aware of any of that. I'm sorry. It just seems like you're making stuff up.
The lineage, you can actually look at the lineage of John and of Zechariah.
Where would I get this lineage from? So you're talking about the Bible?
That's one source. That's not the only source you can use to show that.
I'm not aware of any of what you're talking about as being authoritative.
I know.
So as far as dating 19:7, there's no way you can date it unless you're trying to use a Bible or something like that. But those are illegitimate sources.
Okay, so the question would be, if we can find that John the Baptist historically was born in the 1st century and that there was another John born prior to that.
Why do you keep saying John? You need to say Yahya. The name is
Yahya. It's literally just Yahya translated in English. Okay. If we find that Yahya was born in the son of Zechariah was born in the 1st century and that there was another Yahya prior to that name Yahya, would this disprove what the Quran is saying?
Well, no, because the Quran doesn't give any dates as to when this was actually, when this was actually revealed. So no, it wouldn't.
That's why I said if it's true that we find out that Yahya, the son of Zechariah, was in the first century, and this other Yahya was prior, then would it be true?
You're saying that the Quran, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost in terms of what you're saying here. You're saying that the Quran was revealed. I guess I'm trying to, where my confusion here is, you're trying to put a date on Surah 19, verse 7,
Wait,
right?
James, sorry, James, can we pause real fast? The comments are saying they can't hear us.
Let me double check. I did see a little bit of buffering, but it should be fixed. Let me check. It
Chat,
said
how's it looking?
someone said reopen the video, fixes sound. Oh yeah, folks, if you want to reload the page, sorry, apparently the sound was bugging for a second, but it looks like it's back if people
Okay, we should be
refresh.
good now. Yeah. Cool. We'll keep going. Just wanted to make sure that was good. Cool. So I'll just move on. James, how much time do I have left?
Only about a minute, not even.
Okay, I'll try to hurry up. Okay, so we have so to be a true prophet, Muhammad must be in agreement with the previous prophets, and you said that that's not the case. That he is in continuity with the previous prophets, even though the other scripture has errors and is corrupted. So how do you know if the old scriptures of the prophets are corrupted? How do you know outside of the Quran that he is truly in agreement with the previous prophets?
Well, when you say in agreement, well, I think in terms of course, you're right. The Bible has been changed. It has scientific errors, as we've seen inside this debate, as well as other errors. And so when we see that the Quran makes certain claims, like, that this is in continuity with what the prophets have said, it's always referring to a specific instance, like Tawheed, the oneness of God. All the prophets taught that there was one God and worship nothing else. We can look in, we have the Jewish references. The Jewish people actually concede to that. They say, yes, we accept that the way the Quran is telling us about God, that is the right understanding of what God is. So they actually,
We're at about
many Jewish
that
people
time.
actually pray inside I'm sorry, they don't see a problem praying inside a mosque. Why? Because they do accept that we worship the same God. So that's a continuity that we can
And
see. It's
time.
yeah, I'm sorry.
We are going to jump into the Q&A, folks. We do have a number of questions, so we're going to try to move as fast as possible, but do want to remind you, both of our guests are linked in the description box. You can find more, including at the podcast. We put all of our guest links in the podcast, as well as every episode of Modern Day Debate ends up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Find the Modern Day Debate podcast and find our guests linked in the description box there as well. We're going to come in with this first question from 2 seconds as it loads. Oh, yeah, we have a lot of questions. So we're going to move really fast. Phil F716 says, this is the worst, most desperate attempt to discredit Christianity that I've ever heard. How embarrassing. Go look at the state of every Muslim country. Who do you think that came from? God or Satan? They said, okay. So we'll give you a chance to respond, Nadir.
Well, I think he's just upset because he found out that his Bible is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews and 2,000 years of suffering and persecution. These are the word. This is what every Holocaust scholar talks about. Now, in terms of the problems in the Islamic world, if you can show me today that it's actually Islam which is causing that, then yes, Islam would be false. But there is no evidence to suggest that. But I think the argument which won tonight's debate is the fact that if you compare
I just
how
want to kind of
Islam
keep it.
came and
We have a
removed
lot of
this.
questions.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can respond to the questions only. Terran
Yeah.
J316 says, Maimonides, who is Jewish, who lived under Sharia, said, God has entangled us with this people, the nation of Ishmael. No nation has ever arisen more harmful, nor has anyone done more to humiliate, degrade, and hate us.
Mhm.
We'll give you a chance, Nadir, to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, these are basically what we call hearsay evidence. It is not a historical fact. You will find other Jewish scholars and academics who actually say quite the opposite, and people in history. But Maimonides was also had some bad experiences with some Muslims. But overall, the challenge which I had, which we can see, go and look in the Islamic history. Where are all the refugee camps? There are literally, if you look around Israel, there are, it is littered with refugee camps of unwanted Arabs because they are not Jewish. Okay, if you look at the Islamic world, we have no Islamic persecution of Jewish people. That is ahistorical. We have no examples of gas chambers. We have no examples of the torture devices. In fact, we know from history that the Jewish people came to the Islamic world, leaving Europe into the Islamic world. All of the historians, all the scholars accept that the Jewish
Okay.
people, although there was some bad stuff that happened here and there, the Jewish people live better under in the Islamic world than under the Christian world. But the main point, which I wanted to mention in this
Oh, I thought
debate,
that was the main point. I thought that was the point of the question. Well, we'll go to the next one. Let's Talk God
yeah,
says,
sure, yeah.
according to Sanan Abi Dawood 67 says, Muhammad declares that water containing menstrual rags and dead dogs is still considered pure and not unclean, Nadir.
Yeah, wonderful hadith. So basically, this water which you are talking about is the drinking water for millions of people today, because there is a scarcity of water, and therefore you have to make use of whatever water sources are there. And when he said, okay, and this water is pure, it's not talking about from a scientific point of view, because they already know these things. When you're 30 years old and you're living in the desert, you know what water sources are available for you and how to drink water and how to purify it. So Muhammad is not giving any scientific lessons here. He's giving you a religious lesson, meaning it's not sinful to take this water. So there's a great deal of stupidity involved in such a question, where you think that people in their 30s, 40s, living in the desert 1400 years ago, they don't know about water purity. That is a level of stupidity which is just unacceptable.
So from Phil F716 says, you can't disprove the crucifixion historically, so you're going to deny the most documented event in human history. Islam is the only place
It
on
is
earth
a
they said Islam is the only place on earth the event is denied. The entire globe disagrees.
No, actually, there are historical references. I asked, I did say, hey, if you want some historical references to show that the crucifixion didn't happen, I was ready to share that with you. But the opportunity didn't come up in the debate. But what you need to understand, and again, I stand with the Jewish people and the historians. This crucifixion story is an evil, wicked, sinister story which is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, as well as 2,000 years of suffering and persecution. That should be enough to disprove it, that this is something from the
But
devil.
they're asking more about whether it happened, not the effects of it. I just want to keep us on task.
No, it didn't happen because it's too evil.
Okay. This one from Dr. Shizut Troll says, why does the Quran mention Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures, showing hate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, there's a Jewish scholar named Dr. Bernard Lewis. He talked about this. He says if you look at the criticisms in the Quran, there are actually more criticisms, and Jewish people don't walk away very flattered after what they read about in the Quran. But here is the evidence of why Islam is a true religion. Now, that verse you quoted, now take a look in the world. Where has this verse ever incited hatred and violence against the Jewish people? Go to Yad Vashem. Go to the American Holocaust Museum. There are no Quran verses. There are no Hadith, but there's lots of Bible verses. So this actually has backfired. This is actually showing that Islam is a religion of peace, that in spite of its criticisms of the Jews and Christians, it doesn't incite hatred and violence to them. You got 2,000 years of history, or I'm sorry, 1,400 years of history. Show me one occurrence.
This one from Charon J316 says, Sahih al Bukhari 3175. Aisha says, let's see, there is one, let me just be sure, because I know that Aisha, there was a question or a topic we agreed wouldn't be covered tonight. Let's see. Charon J, I'll make it up to you. I need another question that's not related to Aisha, because that is something both debaters actually agreed on not covering tonight. Brad Harvey says, Nadir, who's your favorite scholar? Sheikh Cheek GBT or Ibn Thir. I think that they're
Mm-hmm.
accusing you of using AI.
Yeah, well, that's because, these false religions of Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, they are terrified of the logic and problem-solving abilities which the AI brings to the debate. So, obviously it's going to disprove what they believe. So what they're doing, they're heckling the AI to get it out of religion because it's going to expose their false religion. But if you notice how I used AI, I used it quite responsibly. I used it as to solve a problem, and I asked you to take the same paragraph and put it in your AI so that there's no bias. And if you do that, you're going to get the same results I am getting. It's not able to solve the problem. But if you notice, my opponent wasn't able to
So it was
solve the
a
problem.
joke. It was a joke about whether or not you
Yeah.
use AI. Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, if Islam works, then why are a majority of Muslim countries on the top 10 worst places to live?
Because they're not. Okay, that's that. We have a long history. When Islam was revealed, we see that there was a great success of what we call the Islamic Golden Age, in which all of science, well, you could say the Europeans of today, they based their science on the Islamic science. It's called the Golden Age of science. What brought that into the world? It's Islam who brought that. So historically, we know that Islam brought success. It brought scientific advancement into the world. Now, as for what we are seeing today, it is a result of confusion. And again, we go back to the scholars and historians. The scholars and historians all agree that they credit the religion of Islam for the golden age of Islam, which brought Islam into the world, which brought science and progress into the world. But I'm not aware of any scholars or academics from the historians who say that, oh no, Islam is a result of the problems which we see today. It's people's misinterpretation, misapplication of the religion.
Taryn J says, according to Sahih al-Bukhari 3175, it says, once the prophet was bewitched so that he began to imagine that he had done a thing which in fact he had not done. I don't know the context.
Yeah, this is well, if I may point out what's going on here. I mean, all the arguments we're seeing in the debate, they're not talking about the arguments in the debate. They're trying to win the debate after the debate. They're trying to bring up all these issues which are irrelevant. But I'm glad you raised that up because this proves the prophethood of Islam. Okay, he said the prophet Muhammad was bewitched. But wait a second, if Muhammad was a satanic prophet, then there's no need to bewitch him. Only a true prophet of God can be bewitched. Okay, if he's already satanic, then what the hell is the story? It doesn't make sense. And then we can go and look at all of the other alleged prophets, whether it's Ghulam Mirza, the false apostle Paul, Joseph Smith, and the list goes on, and Guru Nanak. What do you not find in those stories? We don't find any stories of bewitchment upon them. Why? Because they are already from Satan. So the bewitchment story has backfired upon that person. It's a powerful evidence for Islam because only true prophets can undergo that, not satanic ones. Because they're already satanic.
And I want to give you a chance. Fearless Truth, I know that you're chilling, so we're not ganging up on him.
Yeah.
But I do want to let you know you can jump in at with some of them if you'd like. In fact, a number of them, because it seems like there are almost only questions for Nadir. But
all right, I'll keep that in mind going forward for sure. I'll keep that in mind going forward for the next questions.
You got it. This one from Sean D says, question for Nadir in Sinan Abu Dawood, number 3844, says dip a fly, your drink, one wing has disease and the other has cure. How is this scientifically true? 2, how is this a healthy act?
Yeah, has nothing to do with what we talked about. So these are all these silly arguments they're learning from their Christian apologists. So that hadith has been confirmed to be true. We now know from scientific studies that it has been proven that there actually is the antibiotic on the surface of that fly. So and you'll see many examples of scientists themselves dipping the fly so one of the things I would just please encourage these people who are raising this question, try to Google these same arguments and look for Islamic responses on them. Because what we're seeing from these questioners is that they're just listening to one side of the argument here. I guess they're sitting in these YouTube channels and listening to all this garbage about Islam, but they don't do independent research on it. So this is actually, again, has backfired upon them because we now know that science has confirmed. In fact, I'm going to read to you the article here. If I could share my screen, I could do that. It says, this is from ABC Science. It says the surface of the flies is the last place you would expect to find antibiotics. Yet this is exactly where the team of Australian researchers is concentrated concentrating their efforts. So really what I would ask the people who are raising these questions, you got to hear both sides of an argument and not just sit and listen to these to just these arguments against Islam, because this you should know how I'm going to respond to this, and then you should bring a counter rebuttal to my response if you did your homework.
I'll make a quick point to that too. He said that the audience needs to do independent research on it. It seems like Muslims don't do independent research on things, because if they did, you would think that Muslim countries in the last 1600 years or 1400 years would have at least done some sort of research on the thing that Muhammad said cures all diseases. Yet I guess 1400 years later, no research has been done to prove that.
Give you the last word, Nadir, then we got to go to the next one.
Yeah, it's an argument from silence. And again, I pointed out, Muhammad gave the instructions when he said, listen, there's something that I give from myself. And so, and then he also said, look, I'm also studying from Romans and Greeks. So, and I'm studying their science. So he played many roles. And we need to understand that one of the roles is scientist, doctor, well, some of those roles. So even hypothetically, if you see that, okay, well, this is something here is not working, that does not disprove Islam. Okay. And so my opponent had no response to that.
This one from Jordan Lochran says, you should go into your chat GPT and ask it if saying that the crucifixion is false because people do bad things with the fact is a logical fallacy. And do want to remind you guys, we don't want you to use chat GPT. I assume that you're not, but more to the point.
This all goes back to, why the Christians are afraid of chat GPT and AI is because the AI will refute and disprove a lot of their arguments. And so it's not just them. All the false religions are doing that, from Hindus, Jews, Christians. They're afraid of AI, but Islam is not. The point which I raised with ChatGPT is, how do you reconcile Muhammad being a false prophet in light of the Holocaust and what we talked about today? They say, no, we cannot. That's not something that makes sense, to see Prophet Muhammad as a false prophet. So you can definitely use AI for problem solving. It's a great problem solver. So what is going on is that Christians are heckling. They're heckling the AI to get it out of here. But it's not going to work. The AI is going to be imposed upon the infidels.
Well, it looks like you're showing us that you're using AI during the debate. That's what we're saying we don't want you to do, is because people want to see you guys quizzed on your knowledge, and it looks like you're just otherwise they would just go ask these questions to AI themselves.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want them to do. And I stated that. I said, you copy this.
No.
And well, I no, look at what the false religions are asking here to get AI out of religion. I'm not going to go along with it. We are going to incorporate AI into religion, into debates, and we're going to, the arguments which you are presenting, we're going to definitely bring it in there.
You've been using AI to help you this whole time?
No, I'm using AI to show that that's a problem you cannot solve. To see Muhammad as a false prophet, that doesn't make sense. And like I said, there is no reason why finance, science, computer science, everybody is embracing AI except for religion. Why is it that religion is trying to kick AI out of it? That doesn't make sense to me. Islam is the only religion which says, yeah, come on, bring it. And the way you should use it is you start a conversation with it.
We don't want you to use chat GPT during a debate, though. It's like the people, we've already lost 200 live viewers because they're turned off by, it's like they want to see you guys in the hot seat being pressed on what do you really know?
Okay, if it's for viewership, then okay, I understand what you're saying. But remember what I said. Listen, I said, look, AI couldn't solve this problem, so I asked Fearless Truth to solve this problem. James, I'm going to tell you why people left this debate. They heard some horrible things about Christianity, that it is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews. This is why they left. Okay. And I know that because I've debated this before.
We put out a formal statement on Twitter a week ago saying we don't want people using AI during the debate.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry then. If that's the case, I did not see it.
Let's just pretend you weren't using AI this debate.
Okay.
They say, James, you caught him. He just pulled it. Like, Nadir, you can't pull it up on screen. What is going on?
Well,
I'm like,
if you okay, if these religious people that are following you don't want to use AI,
gosh.
I didn't know that.
Not
I don't
during
follow
the
your Twitter.
debate.
Why not?
Okay. Not like, and you can do it when you prep. Like, it's efficient to
Mhm.
use it when you prep, but
Yeah.
like not if you're gonna like feed it Nick's questions during the cross exam. Like, you don't, like, because then it's not, you're not being quizzed. It's just AI that's
Okay.
being cross
That's
examined.
fine. I guess in cross examination, don't use AI or something like that. I actually
Well,
didn't know about that.
ideally not
Yeah.
at all throughout the debate. Like, but
Yeah.
this one from, we're just gonna pretend we didn't see that because
Okay.
layman apologist question for Nadir: what independent epistemic authority establishes the Quran over prior revelation without presupposing Islam?
I don't understand. What do they mean by that question? I don't understand.
Let's see. They say, like, is there something other than the Quran that we can know that it's the ultimate authority? So they're saying,
Mhm.
what independent epistemic authority establishes that the Quran is more important to than prior revelation, like the New
Mhm.
Testament, without
Well,
presupposing the Islam or the Quran is true already?
yeah. So what is, and that was in my initial presentation where I had the check marks. I showed, look, the Bible and the Quran talks about these same things. So we could look at history, we could look at science, and we'll just exclude AI. We could look at just these things and see who gave the better answer. And there is no question about it that Islam gave the better answers both scientifically and historically on these issues. And if Muhammad was a false prophet, that doesn't make any sense for him to be doing that. So this is how you can be certain and sure that Islam is true. Like for one example I gave, in its mere correction of the Bible on alcohol, it made three scientifically correct statements. In its correction, only a God could do something like that.
This one from Emperor Fatass says, so if Islam is true, like you say, Nadir, then is it true that Muhammad? Oh, that's right. This one from Phil. That one was a question that debaters agreed not to discuss tonight. Phil F716 says, time. Okay. We're looking for sincere questions. This one from Emperor Fatass says, can you guys please unban me on Discord? Okay, whatever. Sean D says, question for Nadir. How do you how do you deal with the verses when Muhammad was bewitched for years and the verses about accepting the goddess the pagans worshipped?
Now, I don't know anything about the last part, but the argument about bewitchment, this backfires on them. I already answered. Actually, I already answered this question. About bewitchment. It seems like, but I can answer it again. If Muhammad was some kind of false satanic prophet, then he's already from Satan. There's no need for bewitchment. Bewitchment can only happen to a true prophet of God. And one of the evidences is we could look at all the other people who claim to be prophets, whereas Ghulam Mirza, Joseph Smith, false apostle Paul. We could look at Guru Nanak, and the list goes on. What don't you find in their story? Any example of bewitchment, because they are already from Satan. So this is actually an argument which does not disprove Islam. It actually is an argument in favor of Islam.
This one from Brad Harvey says, Nadir, if Quran is God's eternal word, it has to get every scientific claim correct, not just three. It gets embryology wrong and plenty more.
Mhm. Yeah, this, first of all, that's not true. The Quran is in 100% agreement with modern science. Now, I've had many debates, by the way, here on MDD on that topic. You can go ahead and watch it. I'm still waiting for anybody if anybody would like to challenge me on the scientific accuracy of the Quran, I'm ready for that debate. Anytime, any place, just set it up. And you will see the Quran is 100% agreement with modern science.
You got it. This one from Sean D says, question for Nadir. Could Sahih al-Bukhari 2926 but harmful to Jewish community?
I don't know what it states there, but just to reiterate, my point here is: look, we have now 1,400 years of history. You could go to the museum, Sahih Bukhari, whatever that reference is, not inside Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. It's not inside the Holocaust Museum. It's not in all. If you read the writings of anti-Semitism and the history of the Jews, you will not find Sahih Bukhari there. You will not find any verses of the Quran which has been blamed for inciting hatred that leads to violence against the Jewish people. It does not exist, not in Sahih Bukhari or in any Quran verse.
You got it. If you haven't yet, hit that like button. We do appreciate that support, folks. With that, next question. Phil, F716 says, if scientific claims is what makes things true, Nadir, how is the Quran true? Sun setting in mud, male fluids made in the rib. You buried your own book.
No, I think this is what's happening here. Let's just take a step back. And it looks like people are trying to win the debate after the debate. None of this has anything to do with what we talked about. So it looks like I argued an airtight case for the case of Islam, but people are trying to bring up alleged scientific contradictions. But I will answer it for you very clearly. Once again, go back and look at the Muslim responses on these issues. Nowhere in the Quran does it say the sun goes yadhabu fi in the Arabic into a pool of muddy water. Rather, it says it taghribs in a pool of murky water. I say in Surah 1886, what does taghrib mean? It means the way it appeared to the person, I think it was Dhul-Qarnayn. So there is no scientific contradiction here at all. Go ahead.
This one from, do appreciate it. Humble Servant says, question for Nadir. How do you deal with Sahih al-Bukhari 2926 calling for violence against Jews while you say the Quran is quote unquote peaceful? It's Sahih.
It's the hadith I read earlier.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of the peacefulness of Islam. It talked about that there will come a time when, when this is basically it's a messianic prophecy that Jesus is going to come and he is the one who will bring judgment to the Jewish people. But if you look through history, again, go to the Yad Vashem, go to any Jewish source, and show me how this hadith you're quoting incited violence towards the Jewish people or any type of crime. It did not. This is my point, that what I pointed out, this is Bernard Lewis actually talked about this. He's a Jewish historian, pro-Israeli Jewish historian. He said, look, if you see the criticisms of the Jewish in the Islamic scriptures, it's actually far worse criticisms than what you actually find in Islam. But it doesn't incite the Muslims into hatred and violence against the Jewish people.
I'll respond to that too, I guess. I'm not gonna lie, saying that the stones will literally cry out saying to kill the Jews isn't inciting violence is that's something, man.
Yeah. Well, if I could have the last word on that.
Go ahead.
You see, this is the problem is, you're seeing when it talks about the Jews are crying out, this is God's judgment coming upon them. This is not something which happens normally. So as every Muslim sees that, so he says, oh, this is going to be from God. God will do, and this is coming when Jesus will come. So this is actually showing you that what Islam is saying is, hey, yeah, okay, the Jews got mistakes, whatever it is, but leave it up to me. I will judge them. You don't judge them. That's what the Hadith is telling the entire Islamic world. And we've got 1,400 years of history to back that up, to show you this has never happened.
This one from, do appreciate your question. E says, Nadir, a lot of Muslims and ex-Muslims complain about your dishonesty. Whoa! Don't you think being honest would be beneficial? Also, Hitler hated and killed Christians and ironically liked Muslims. Parentheses, big surprise, Google is free.
Yeah, actually, there's nothing true about what this guy is saying. From his tone, he's very upset. He's emotionally upset on what he's heard in tonight's debate. But what I would have asked him to do, rather than just, engaging in any kind of slander, you should have shown where my arguments are wrong. Show me where I've misquoted the American, Holocaust Museum or Yad Vashem or any of the sources. But you're not able to attack my arguments. Rather, you're attacking me personally. This is called ad hominem.
This one from Jordan Lofgren says, if we are to trust the historians and academics on what they say, should we also trust and accept what they say about the validity of Islam?
Yeah, well, we definitely can debate that, but you got to understand, it's not just when I say, look, the New Testament is guilty for the death of 6 million Jews. It's not just the historians. You can see this evil in the writings of of Adolf Hitler. He quoted 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 16. You can see it in the writings of Justin Martyr. He can be rightfully called the first Nazi inside the church fathers' writings. He quoted this. So you can see this evil seed of hatred being trickled down from Justin Martyr, the church fathers, all the way to Adolf Hitler, and then finally its resting place inside the Holocaust Museum. So it's not just, okay, you're just blindly accepting the historians and scholars. You can look and see it for yourself. Now, I'll give you one last reference. Rabbi Tobias, he was talking about he was physically assaulted by a group of Hispanic children. Why? Because he was accused of being a Christ killer. Okay, so you can even see how this argument is creating and generating hatred even in today's time. In my last debate on this topic, 2 Christians became Nazis. Can you believe that? And I have that on my YouTube page. 2 Christians became Nazis because they realized, this stuff all makes sense, you know. So no, even in today's time, you don't need historians and scholars to see this book produces and generates hatred toward Jewish people.
Yeah, I'll respond to that too. He says like things like, "Oh, all the historians talk about how, that this incited the violence against the Jews." Yet I think that we would be hard pressed if we look at all of scholarship to find a single scholar that does not believe that the crucifixion is historical fact.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, rather, you're not looking at this from the point of view of good and evil. You should see that, hey, look, whatever happened on the cross, or there could be something satanic about this, and that's where you're being blinded. Now, in tonight's debate, I was going to show you references from historical references show that the crucifixion didn't happen, but the big argument you should be considering is how much of this story is from the devil. That is what you should be focusing on.
Do appreciated this one, Quan. Joel Babu says, what about is ISIS using Quran for terror?
No, they're not. What ISIS is doing, if we go back, a good Google keyword search is what motivates terrorists. And there you'll get not AI, I won't bring up AI. We'll get plenty of post 9/11 research. All of them exonerate Islam as a source of terrorism. Okay, and this is also coming from government website, but I'm going to give you even a bigger evidence for that. Look at Donald Trump. Look at General Petraeus. These are people. General Petraeus is an expert on the subject. Not only is he a general, but many people don't know this, but he's also an academic scholar. He's a graduate from Princeton. He got his PhD from Princeton and from West Point. He talked about this. Nowhere does he blame Islam for the evil actions of ISIS, and he's an expert on the subject. Look at Trump. Trump is surrounded by hate-filled anti-Islamic bigots, but you'll never hear Trump accuse Islam of being the source for the violence of ISIS. Why? The research doesn't support it.
This one from Phil F716 says, if your prophet is peaceful, why does the Quran call for ending the lives of Jews and Christians? Why in the last 50 years has radical Islam led to the deaths of more people than any other group?
Well, first of all, the Quran doesn't call for the death of Jews and Christians. Actually, quite the opposite. It calls for peaceful coexistence with this, but this is nowhere. I mean, what is undeniable, which I think you're in denial of, is that the verse which I quoted, that the Jews did not kill Jesus, that did bring peace into the world. In the Islamic world, you don't have this deicide, meaning the killing of God, or this type of violence against the Jewish people because of what they did to Jesus. That's just not in the Islamic world. Why? Because the Quran removed that theological seed of hatred. As for what you're calling radical Islam, well, that never existed before the creation of the state of Israel. Before Israel, where was all this violence? It didn't exist. It was only when people invaded the Islamic world, made them homeless, and shackled them up in refugee camps, millions to create the state of Israel, then all of a sudden this violence emerged. So, and historians, academics know that. Google keyword search, what motivates terrorists? You will see from the research papers that'll come up in that Google search, Islam is not blamed for it. So you should base your belief on research, not the holy men of Christianity, which is teaching you hate and malice towards our religion.
This one from Branduga says blaming the Holocaust on the crucifixion does not exonerate Islam since Allah tricked everybody into believing Jesus was crucified.
It does exonerate Islam because this is not not dealing with my argument. I stated very clearly today that Islam removed that seed of theological hatred and malice which caused centuries of persecution. Islam removed it by saying the Jews did not kill Jesus. Now, as for who actually died on the cross, did Allah make it appear to them? All of that is irrelevant. That is irrelevant to what I'm saying. So what you're doing, you're shifting the goalpost. Okay, stop shifting the goalpost and deal with the argument you heard tonight. You should accept that the New Testament is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews. And that is an undeniable, reality. And I'm ready to take my opponent here into any synagogue, where there's Jewish scholars, and I'll sit him down and they will concur and agree with everything I said.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. Again, it feels like we're arguing more of feelings rather than fact. If it feels like, oh, this is bad, this is a sad verse, well, that has nothing to do, as I mentioned, with the validity of the claim, whether or not it's true, whether or not people used this verse to cause harm. It has nothing to do with anything. I would say if someone were to use Sahih Bukhari 29:26, and they use that as a reason to kill Jews, I wouldn't say, okay, that automatically makes the Quran false. I would say, okay, well, that person is probably just using it in a bad manner. Just like in the same
Yeah.
way, these people who use these verses are using them in a bad manner. It has nothing to do with the historical facts. I like facts over feelings.
Yeah, well, no, I've already refuted that in tonight's debate. I stated very clearly, let's take an example of the Quran example, the Quran verse, and people were misusing it, and and it led to this horrible suffering. Then yes, you can blame the author of the Quran. But as I stated, which you did agree tonight, introducing an idea, while knowing it will likely cause harm or serious problems, does create some degree of moral responsibility for the foreseeable outcomes. And please keep in mind, what is it that we're talking about here? You are accusing the Jewish people of the most heinous sin, worse than child abuse, and the most horrible sin that you killed my God. What do you think is going to happen when you stigmatize an entire group of people? Of course, bad things are going to happen. So, this is just not taking a verse which says, okay, Jeff went up the hill and somebody used that to create violence. It is predictable what's going to happen here. Of course, when you stigmatize people, bad things are going to happen.
This one from do appreciate it. Nadir, which came first, Christians or the Bible? Jordan of Lofgren.
I think the Bible did. Yeah.
This one from Let's Talk God says, question for Nadir, if I hypothetically say, quote, I'm going to punch you in the face in the future, unquote, is that inciting violence?
If you say that I'm going to punch you in the face, well, if you tell other people, yeah, it definitely could. I mean, it could incite violence, but again, this goes back to my point, which I mentioned later, before, that look at what's being said over here in the verse. Okay, when you accuse the Jewish people, not just of killing your God, of the most heinous sin in the world, but you're also accusing every Jew to be a murderer. The verse goes on and said that every Jew is a murderer of the prophets, and they inherit this. Okay, when you say hateful things like that, and you expect nothing to happen, huh? Oh no, it's perfectly fine to stigmatize people. All is well. No, when you stigmatize people with these type of allegations, then yes, the Bible is to be blamed. It knew that if I introduced this idea, what was going to happen. If you had that foreknowledge, then yes, the Bible is to blame.
This one from Brad Harvey, let's see, yeah, says, I think the real lesson that I learned here tonight. Okay. That one, all right. Emperor Fat Ass says, doesn't the Quran's instruction in Quran 47:4 to strike and subdue disbelievers in battle contradict claims of it not inciting violence?
Yeah. No, I think well, first, let me just pull up 47:4 real quick. just so I can read it. Okay. 47:4. When you meet the unbelievers in battle, smite their necks until you have crushed them. This is talking about what takes place in war. That when you meet the enemy, you fight them. But there's many wonderful teachings when it comes to Quran and war. Like, for example, look at Surah 4, verse 91. Here it gives you the code of conduct, the military code of conduct of how you should behave on the battlefield. It says, if your enemy is not offering you peace, their hands are not restrained from fighting you, then those people, then you can take a hold of them and kill them. So what's wonderful is that the Quran has a beautiful code of conduct for the military to follow, which basically protects innocent civilians, protects children, and especially committing atrocities or any kind of war crimes. So that's chapter 4, verse 91, and there's many other examples I can give you. And that's a wonderful debate I would like to do, if my opponent is up for it, is Islam a religion of peace? And you will see the Quran is a religion of peace.
This one from Sean D says, question for Nadir. Didn't Allah make it appear Jesus was crucified and leading people to believe he was writing it down and caused, quote, the issues later in history?
Well, this really is kind of not related, but okay, we can deal with that. So basically, it was made to appear to them so that Jesus was crucified, that he was saved from crucifixion. It's a beautiful story. Why? Because it brought peace into the world. That's the number one reason why I believe it. But as far as who took this story and made a religion out of it, then that is a false prophet named Paul. The same Paul who is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews. It's First Thessalonians is his authorship. I believe so. Yeah, I believe he wrote First Thessalonians. So what happened was, in Christian history, a demon-possessed prophet named Paul, he corrupted Christianity and took whatever happened on the cross and whoever died out there, and he made it into a religion. So he is the one to blame, not Prophet Muhammad or Islam, for this false religion of Christianity to be created.
Jasper,
I'll speak on that too. Can I speak on that too? I'll say that is actually a beautiful question because, as he said, if someone does something knowing the outcome will be bad, they should be morally responsible. Well, if Allah did this thing where he made it appear so, knowing the outcome would be that the Christians would make a religion off of it and that people would die from it, then guess what? According to his own way of thinking, Allah is now morally responsible for the killing of the Jews.
Well, not really, because you have a demon-possessed prophet who can come and start false religions. I mean, and now that's actually a theological question for all of us. Why is it that there's false prophets? Paul was a false prophet, just like Ghulam Mirza, just like Guru Nanak. So hypothetically, we could say, yeah, false prophets all eventually is the will of God. So in that sense, yes. But look, the problem here is, yes, God can bring evil into the world. He brought Hitler into the world. Your religion shouldn't. That has nothing to do with no religion. It's not something that Islam is teaching this. God brings evil to the world. But the problem, which you're not understanding, your religious textbooks shouldn't be bringing evil into the world. That's the difference.
Go to the next one. This one from Sean D. Let's see. Question: did you hear 7 dates cure all poison?
Yeah, again, this goes back to, we don't have enough science to prove or disprove these issues about dates or whether it's black seed. It's just, we don't know. So these are all arguments from silence. But like I said, rather than addressing what I was really sad, rather than addressing the core argument which I raised today, that Muhammad saved millions of children from fetal alcohol syndrome, and he did so by by making 3 scientifically correct statements into that there's blood in the veins, alcohol in the veins, the harm of it outweighs any good, and don't drink alcohol. These are 3 scientifically correct statements. So all of that is being ignored. We don't care about that. Let me look for some errors in your book. All right, that's fine. But I wish you would please look at the scientific evidence which I did present into this debate.
I'll speak on that as well. Yeah, it's just funny because you would think that if a prophet who got everything scientifically true literally gave a cure for every single disease, that if you were smart, you would say, let's study that because guess what? We have the cure for all diseases. Let's study it. Let's do it. But for some odd reason, they're just like, nah, it's okay. 16, 14 years later, nah, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, and if you were smart, you would understand that that argument has been refuted. You should have listened to the hadith I quoted. If you were smart, you would pay attention to the refutation of your argument than just being bad, BADD. This is called born again double down, where you just double down on your original argument. Look, let me remind you, Fearless, you are in a debate. And in a debate, you need to respond to your opponent's arguments in their refutations. But you're not doing that. You're just being bad. Born again, double down.
This one from, do appreciate it. Big West says, is Nadir saying we shouldn't share the true but bad parts of history? The truth is the truth. It's evil to censor the truth.
There's nothing truth about your book. I mean, in terms of crucifixion here, the issue here is there is a systematic refusal here where they keep talking about this crucifixion being historical stuff. There's a systematic refusal to look at the prospect that, hey, how much of this crucifixion story is from the devil? How much is, the teachings of Paul? Could he have been a demon-possessed prophet? That is not on the table here. You don't want to look at the evidence. Look, there's no way around this. A book which is responsible for 2,000 years of suffering, pogroms, and violence, that story, that crucifixion story cannot be from God. Okay? It is too evil to be from God. And you're like, oh, all this evil, let's just forget about it. Let's look at the history of it. That is delulu.
This one from.
Yeah, I don't think that it's delusional to want to look at the facts and not feelings. I think it actually makes sense to do that. Again, whether or not these things cause atrocities, it doesn't matter because morality is objective. It's not subjective. So to even start off with how we know things are morally good or evil, we first need to start with finding out who God is, because God is the one who decides what's morally good or evil. So you're kind of putting the horse, before the gun here, and you're saying that we need to find out what's moral, and then we can find out who God is.
Yeah. If I could say the final word, look, when you look at Auschwitz, Dachau, and you read the history of Holocaust, this is not just being emotional. Okay, this is pure evil. All right. And the fact that you are not able to see this is really sad. But the argument is not just, okay, look, the Bible is bad. The issue is, look, the Quran removed this evil which causes suffering. And, it is not there. And based on this, you cannot look at Prophet Muhammad as a false prophet. Now, I tried to bring up AI. I was told not to do it. Okay, fine. But it was not able to solve that problem. And neither were you able to solve it.
This one from James 219 Apologetics says, given your statement about science in the Quran making it true, paraphrased, the science makes it false, correct? Like 22 verse 5, 23, 12 through 14, 40, 67. It says parentheses 75, 37 through 39. Parentheses, man is fashioned from a blood clot. Also adhams are fallacies.
Yeah, no, the verse which you're referring to about where it said that man is fashioned from a clot, this is actually not an error. It is a scientific miracle. So this argument backfires on you because we now know from modern science today that the word clot, it actually has three meanings. Clot is one of them. Alaka, meaning something which, something which clings. The word is alaka, something which clings. And let's see, clot, something which clings. And I'm forgetting the third one. We now know from modern science that the embryo in this stage matches exactly what we find. It's something which clings. And yes, it is very much like clottish because at this time you've got still blood in it. And it looks very similar to a blood clot. So this actually shows the scientific accuracy of the Quran. And this goes back to, what really needs to happen here is a debate on is the Quran in modern science. And my challenge is there. Find somebody who wants to debate me on that.
This one from Tag Dog says, Nadir, how would you feel if you hadn't eaten breakfast this morning?
I feel hungry.
You got it. E says, polytheism? Question mark. Surah 38 verse 5 says, has he made the gods one single God? And then they say, this is truly astounding. And Surah 112 verse 1, Arabic says Allah is Ahad, or one of, not Wahid, which means one God. I have more if you'd like.
Yeah, Surah 38, verse 5 doesn't teach polytheism in any way. I think what this is an argument of the disbelievers where he's saying they're accusing the Prophet of Islam that he has reduced all the gods into one God. Indeed, this is something totally astonishing. So I think what's happening here is he's misreading the Quran for polemical purposes.
This one from, do appreciate your question. Let me see here. D. Jewel says, Nick, could you provide scripture to counter Nadir's statement regarding prophets being Satan-filled? If Jesus gave authority over unclean spirits, does that not show God protects his servants rather than fulfills them with Satan?
Yeah, I think Galatians 1:8 is the perfect example for that. Galatians 1:8 talks about that even if an angel were to come to you, but they preach another gospel, then let them be accursed. That's going to be the main thing. I mean, we see that if they preach something other, they should be accursed. All the prophets in Christianity are in agreement, but then when we get to Muhammad, we see he disagrees with all the prophets. He disagrees with when Isaiah says, for instance, the Messiah will be unalive, he'll be killed, right? Still using TikTok language here, that he will be killed for the sins of the people. And so we know that according to Galatians 1:8, they show us when a prophet is demon possessed, and it is obviously Muhammad and not any of the prophets in the Bible.
Yeah, so all you have to do is just read Jeremiah.
I want to give, I hate to do it, but just because you give you the last word on all of them, I want to give one to, since they asked him. Mr. DeZalb says, Nadir, Quran 4:157 says it was made to appear that Jesus was crucified. Since witnesses included his followers and others present, were they also deceived, or only those who wanted him killed? And oh, by the way, folks, we can't take any more questions. We want to get these guys out of here at a decent time. So please don't submit any more questions. I'll put that in the live chat. Go ahead,
I would say it's just his actual disciples. I think they were. It was not made to appear to them. I think they knew what was going on. It was only those non-believers that it was made to basically rescue Jesus and save him.
This one from, do appreciate it. Joel Babu says, question for Nadir and Nick, both. Who is the Ezra that Jews apparently worship as per the Quran? Allah, parentheses, Momo's alternate personality, is clearly clueless.
Yeah, this is an argument from silence. Just because you don't see or hear about anything about an Ezra, therefore the Quran is wrong. So it's a logical fallacy. Trying to, and again, I would ask you, why don't you take these arguments on your own time? Don't do it up here. Just put them in ChatGPT, put them in Grok, and see if it would even agree with your false reasoning. It will immediately point out the fallacy in your argument that is an argument from silence. You should do that first before you bring it up.
Yeah. I promise if you put into ChatGPT, did any Jews in history ever worship Ezra? It will say no. We have no evidence of that ever occurring.
It will never say that. No, it will never say no. Okay, so that's absolutely false.
Want to test it?
Yeah, it will never say no.
This one from Aisha's Goat says, question for Nadir, if Muhammad allowed deception, why trust his revelations? Bukhari 30:32, Muslim 26:05a, Abu Dawud 26:37, Quran 66:2.
That's a lot.
More ChatGPT.
No, that was me, because he said no, that you could never ever put into ChatGPT, did the Jews ever worship a man named Ezra, and it wouldn't say no. So I just wanted to prove him wrong on that real fast.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, and it does in fact say no.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't say that. But anyways,
you want to put it up on the screen, or James, if you don't want to, because you don't want to.
So James just went off on ChatGPT, so I'm not sure why you're bringing it up here.
Because I asked you if you wanted to test it.
You're not supposed to be doing it. I
just wanted to prove him wrong, James. That was it.
You got. I asked him to do it on his own time, not in this debate. You just
Sorry, this
heard
one,
James reprimand everybody here.
this one. Okay, so wait,
Well,
what
can I
was
answer
the?
the guy about the deception thing?
Okay,
Yeah, so I would ask you to read your own Bible in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 11, and it says over here, and for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. So this deception, this takia and makarin, this is all in your book. It's not in our book.
this one from Main says question for Nadir. Tell us step by step what happened from the point enemies went after Isa life till point Allah raised Isa. Who were there? Allah made it appear so. What appearance did people see get crucified?
Mhm. Yeah, so what we believe is that Jesus was saved from the cross. And what we believe is that somebody else was made who was put on the cross. So actually, when you talk about, okay, look, we have historical evidence that Jesus was crucified, we actually don't have a problem with that because we know that somebody died on the cross and it was made to appear to them so, that somebody who kind of resembled Jesus. So this is how God saved Jesus from the crucifixion. Now some say, okay, well, wait a second, it looks like there's some deception involved. Well, don't wear camouflage. When you wear camouflage, you're pretending to be part of the shrubbery and the bushes, but you're not. You're deceiving people. Okay, so when it comes to fighting your enemy, fighting wars, then yes, you can deceive them. Um, this is just going to the philosophical issue, but I would ask you is to focus on the evil this crucifixion story in your book. I would ask you to look at the horrors and suffering it has caused for 2,000 years. This is a very disgusting, evil story in your book that you are just saying, oh, that Holocaust stuff, never mind. So who exactly died on the cross there? No. Look at the evil that this book has brought into the world, or this story has brought into the world.
This one from, do appreciate it. Tracer Eraser Lace says, Fearless Truth, does the Old Testament showcase the doctrine of the Trinity? Would you be able to show verses that showcase this?
Yes, absolutely. We have, for example, Genesis 1:26, where it says, "Let us create man in our image." If you talk to scholars such as Dr. Michael Brown, he says very clearly that those words are not being used in a sort of plural sense or anything like that. No royal majesty is used there in any way. We have many cases of this. We can see in Exodus 3, the angel of the Lord who is Yahweh, or Genesis 19, who the angel of the Lord who is Yahweh uh, throws fire and brimstone from Yahweh out of heaven and back onto earth. So we see many cases where there is someone named Yahweh who is portrayed, but yet there is multiple persons who have that name and they're all in unity and all called God.
Can I respond to
This,
that?
I don't want to. The only reason is just because you're
Okay,
giving me
that's
the
fine.
last question for all of them.
Yeah, no problem.
Suvivui Exakaza. Sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but thank you for your question. Sivaway says, Nadir, which one is more scientifically incorrect? The mustard seed being the smallest seed or the flies having antibiotics? Also, what is worse, not washing hands or drinking from a well that has dead animals in it?
Yeah, we've already talked about all that, but okay, to answer your question very clearly, one of the scientific errors in the Bible is that it says the mustard seed is the smallest seed you plant into the ground. It's false. It's not the smallest seed. They're actually bigger seeds. The Quran also uses the mustard seed. And so we see that it actually it doesn't mention it or any reference of it being the smallest seed. In terms of the fly, that argument, which was supposed to be an alleged contradiction on Islam or a scientific contradiction, it has backfired. It has shown the accuracy of it, which you were not able to refute. As for drinking water from the dirty water, that was refuted by pointing out that level of stupidity that people have when they read our scriptures, that they're thinking the Prophet of Islam is teaching people at in their 30s and 40s how to drink water and water survival techniques. These are things which they learn when they're 3 or 4 years old, and they're not coming to Prophet Muhammad to learn water science. They're coming to say, hey, is this sinful? Can I do it or not? Will God be angry? So drinking the dirty water that you read in the hadith, millions of people are drinking that water today. And that unfortunately was the case even during the life of Prophet of Islam. The Prophet of Islam gave the right answer. Yes, go ahead and drink it. This is not something which is impure in the sense that that you would be held accountable or sinful for this to drink from there.
I'll respond quickly. Yeah, so the mustard seed is talking about in the Bible. In that region, it obviously would have been the smallest seed they would have known of. So he's not going to say the smallest seed is blank and it's a seed they've never even heard of because they're going to be confused. They're going to use the mustard seed because that's the smallest seed that they were familiar with.
Can I respond to that?
If it's super pithy, I'll give you a quick response.
Yeah. So here we see the wacky, quacky world of Christianity. These are all these false assumptions and silly interpretations that they have to come up with to defend the scientific errors of the Bible. However, when I defended the Quran and the Hadith, I did not do what he did, come up with these silly interpretations. You should bring facts. If you give me a fact, I give you a fact right back. So that's the difference between Islam and Christianity. Christianity is a fake religion, F-A-I-C, false assumption of the ignorant, credulous person, but Islam is a fact-based religion, and that's what we have seen tonight. One person gives you a fake, one person gives you a fact.
This one from, I do appreciate your question. Joel Babu says, if only true prophets can be bewitched, was Abraham, Moses, and Jesus bewitched?
No, the story, we don't have any reference of that story of them being bewitched, but the argument is clear. If he is already a satanic prophet and he's spreading all kinds of evil and a false teaching, what the heck is Satan doing trying to bewitch him? He's already from Satan. That is why you don't see, people like Ghulam Mirza or Joseph Smith or or Apostle Paul, all these other people in history who have claimed to be prophets. You'll never see a bewitchment story on them because they are already from Satan. So why would Satan waste his time doing these things? It doesn't make sense.
This one from Emperor Fatass. Nadir asks, modern day debate to not talk. Let's see, you got that. Brad Harvey says, question for Nadir. How do we know he stopped being bewitched? Please answer with no yap.
So basically, the effects, which happened, there was actually a couple of instances, but that was only temporary. And I'll have to go and look at the hadith for you on that. But remember, Allah is protecting this religion from any kind of evil. And you want to know, and the great beauty, the biggest evidence of that is chapter 4, verse 157. Look how one verse of the Quran brought peace, harmony, and goodwill into the world. That is not the result of bewitchment. That is a result of a true God. That's how you know he's not bewitched.
Jordan Lochran says, let's say that Christianity is to blame for all evil in the world. Can you answer my question now? Do we trust the academics on the validity of Islam?
Well, it depends, what the issue is. Definitely bring them in. And I've brought them in here tonight. I've pointed out that the academics, historians, and scholars, they do not see the Quran or Islam as a source of the violence which ISIS has done. And when they look in history, or you go to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial or any of these, you don't see any Quran verses. So the historians and academics do endorse Islam in that it is not the cause of violence, whether it's the history of the Jewish people, or whether it's, the violence which we see today. So I can confidently say, based on scholarship, Islam is a religion of peace.
This one from, do appreciate it. AG says, Nadir, your argument had holes. I watched this with my Muslim coworker and he broke his fast because you raised Shabahat about Islam. By the way, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, ISIS, cites Bukhari to recruit jihadis.
Well, so everybody is okay when it comes to like issues of like, okay, come and fight in the way of God. Everybody can use that, but when it comes to actually doing the evil things he's doing, like killing innocent civilians, things like that, no, he doesn't use any kind of Quran verses. But again, you're not listening to the scholars and academics. I quoted one scholar, General Petraeus. He, in addition to a general, he is also an academic scholar, and he's an expert on the topic. He has studied this very well. Why don't you listen and follow him? Why and see if he says any of the nonsense which you believe in, or what these Christians are telling you? Again, the Google keyword search on that is what motivates terrorists. tons of articles from academic references, post 9/11 research, which exonerates Islam. Read the research.
This one from Ron, remind you folks, both of our guests, Fearless Truth and Nadir, are linked in the description box. And we've got some more questions here, but I want to remind you, you can find their links at the podcast description box as well. Dan Slob says, Nadir, ask ChatGPT about, parentheses, escaping atonement in Sunni Islam. I dare you.
We're not supposed to be using, well, of course, the audience, they don't want ChatGPT, as I said, because it will expose their false religion. And so I guess in tonight's debate, we're not going to be using it, but maybe you can come to my YouTube channel or something like that, and we can use that, and we can and definitely the point of the AI is not just that, okay, look, this is what AI says. That's not the point. You have a conversation with it. So you could put inputs and try to refute it, and have a conversation with it. So there should be nothing wrong with that.
The only reason I'm like not into AI is because people like it when they talk smack, for example, on Twitter or elsewhere, and then they're like, "Oh, good, you're in a debate. Like, let's see how much you really know." They want the possibility that the person gets caught without an answer. But if they're like, "Oh, let me just quick ask AI, like to feed me the answer," there's nothing. The
Yeah.
stakes are no longer the stakes. There really aren't, because it's just like, well, they're just gonna get
I
AI,
agree.
and it just also feels less. You can use AI, don't get me wrong, I want to be clear. Use AI to prep for debate. Like, yeah, that's efficient. Like, I use AI to look up things like, what are the best sources I should read if I'm going to do a debate on this topic? Great. But like, if it's live during the debate and you're like, you just like type it word for word, like the question that you hear as an example, or something from their opening, it's like, it's kind of like, it's like the stakes are high when ideally it would just be what you know or your notes. Like maybe
Yep.
that's why I say that. But this one from Civil Way says, but whose fault is it that the people believe that Jesus was crucified, Nadir? Is it not Allah that caused this? Why shift the blame on us when we were made to believe that Christ was crucified?
It was Paul. It was Paul who's responsible for that. Okay, all God did is he rescued Jesus from the crucifixion. Then a demon-possessed prophet, the same prophet who authored First Thessalonians, who is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews. It is that satanic prophet who is the one who then created an entire religion uh, illegitimately off what happened in the crucifixion. Okay, so no, Allah is absolved from that. It is Satan who entered into the world who did that, which is through Apostle Paul.
This one from Do Appreciate It. Saved by Grace Apologetics says, how the hell did Paul make up the crucifixion when historically Paul was killing Christians for not denying Jesus was resurrected?
That that's what he claimed. But these are all, you shouldn't just blindly follow some prophet who came after Jesus and just accept all his truth claims. That's true for Islam, and that should also be true for Christianity. Yeah, he claimed, "Oh, I saw Jesus, on the road to Damascus. Paul, why do you persecute me?" But how do you know that story's not made up? Today's debate clearly proved he's a demon-possessed prophet because he is responsible for the death of 6 million Jews and 2,000 years of suffering and misery for the Jewish people. So now we know he is a false prophet.
Just respond to that real fast. I
Sure.
don't think he knows that Paul came after the story of the crucifixion already occurred, so he couldn't have been the one to originate it.
He didn't invent the story of the crucifixion, but he built a religion around it.
This one from Sean D says, question, didn't you say demon possession was a sign that you are from God? According to your standards, Paul is a true prophet?
No, I didn't. I did not say demon possession is a sign of the true prophet. I said that somebody was bewitched, where some magic was imposed upon him. I said that doesn't happen to prophets which are demon possessed because they're already demon possessed. That is illogical. That's irrational. So the prophet of Islam was never demon possessed. But yes, you will read in Hadith that there was magic being being done upon him. And I guess I should have used the word magic versus bewitched. So in that sense, yes, no, that cannot happen to if this was a prophet who was already a false prophet, this would never have happened.
This one from, do appreciate your question, L2A says 9/11 was pure evil. Although we wouldn't generalize Islam based off bad characters like let's see. This one from Grumble Snort says if the crucifixion story is so evil that it's from the devil, and Allah made the crucifixion appear to have happened, so people wrote it down to share, how is Allah not the devil in this situation?
In this situation, as I've explained over and over again, it is not Allah who is responsible here. It is the false demon possessed prophet Paul who is responsible for building a religion off of the crucifixion. He is the one who is responsible here. It's not Allah. Allah basically just took Jesus, took him up to himself, and made it to appear as if he was being killed. Good. It should have ended right there. Nobody should be talking about it anymore. But then a demon possessed prophet, Apostle Paul, came and built a religion off of that. Okay, so he is the one who's responsible for this.
This one from Grumble. I got that one. James219 Apologetics says, me, I'll argue your scientific dysfunctional book. Okay, they say they want to debate you. Maybe.
Sure.
Civil
James,
says,
yeah.
Nadir, do you think the Holocaust wouldn't have happened if Allah didn't make it appear that Jesus was crucified?
It would not have happened, of course not. The reason why this happened was because of Apostle Paul. That's First Thessalonians. He's the author of that. He is the one who said the Jews killed Jesus. Allah never told him to do that. Okay, so it's false Apostle Paul who's responsible for the Holocaust.
Vermont says, Nadir, is it true that Satan urinates in the ears of some people, causing them to miss the call to prayer?
This is a hadith. Again, if your intent is to mock and ridicule, that's perfectly fine. These are not really arguments which disprove Islam. But the way I look at it is you should look at the arguments which was presented in this debate and challenge the evidences which I've presented. That's what you should be doing rather than getting angry and mad and trying to find ways to heckle at Islam.
This one from Isa Kabir says, I'll take the modern science challenge, Uncle Nadir.
Yeah, go ahead and set it up. James is right here. He sets it up. I've issued the challenge to debate Quran and modern science, and I won't mention any names, but pretty much all the so-called apologists here, they didn't accept the challenge. But and that's the difference between Islam and Christianity. Christians don't debate the scientific errors in their Bible. Only Islam takes up this challenge. So if Isa Kabir wants to do it, let's set it up. Anytime, any place.
You got it. This one is from Mott. Nadir, is it true? We got that. Sorry. Main says, if Nadir, if Allah has power to raise Isa, why did he have to do a trick to make it appear so? Isn't it game over for the mob trying to kill Isa the moment Allah swoop is Isa up? The switch is pointless.
Well, it seems like, James, it's the same question being repeated over and over again. It's like I'm giving the same answer about who died on the cross and saving Jesus from crucifixion. I think, I don't want to bore people by just saying the same thing over and over again.
Oh, wait, but so.
Unless it's a different question, maybe I'm not understanding.
This is me not trying to jump in the debate myself. It is like genuinely trying to understand because I don't. Maybe this question was asked, but I think they're just saying, like, did Allah need to like swap someone in if he's just like if he just swoops in and takes Isa off the cross or prevents him from going off on the cross, like you don't need to put someone else there unless you had a reason for putting someone else there.
Yeah.
I think that's
this is why did God do it in this specific way? This is part of God's will and plan. And we can, and yeah, it probably is part of God's will and plan that he knew ahead of time that a false prophet was going to come and he was going to build a religion off of what about this alleged crucifixion. And he was going to introduce into the world unimaginable suffering and persecution because of this. God knows that. That's perfectly fine. But what my point here is a religious textbook should not be the cause of this suffering and misery. Whether it's, if it the Bible and the Quran, it should bring good, happiness, peace, and love into the world. And yes, God is responsible ultimately for the evil and the good which comes into this world, but not his holy books.
This one from, and then Mott, we did read your question. Let's see. Nadir said you were mocking and you weren't serious.
Is that
I
to
mean,
me?
yeah.
I'm confused.
No, it was someone in chat said that their question was read, and I said we read it about 4 minutes ago. It was about if Satan urinates in someone's ear,
Yeah, we
is this a
definitely read
call
that.
to prayer? But Isa, or not Isa, sorry. I'm like, I'm apparently out of it. Nadir, you had said, but to like, so is it might be a metaphor? Is that what you're saying? Because
Even about
you kind of said, hey, you're just mocking, and I think they're saying, but they felt like you didn't engage with the question, because I think they said, you. So I'm not trying to
yeah.
press you on it, but maybe it's a metaphor or something. Is that what you're saying?
No, actually, I'm not sure what exactly I wasn't engaged with. What they were mentioning. But yeah, I thought
Is
felt like some of the questioners they are trying to heckle and mock, which is okay. I have no problem with that. If they want to do that. But I feel like I'm answering the question the best I can here.
You got it. This one from I just wanna because this one H Cube 49 says question and endure. If Islam is true, then Allah caused Christianity to raise. What kind of God will deceive billions of people?
Yeah, again, I'll respond to that. The same answer. It is Allah basically rescued Jesus, and saved him. But then it was a false prophet who came after Jesus, named Apostle Paul, who built the religion around this story of the crucifixion, and he is the one. He is the one responsible for inventing Christianity, not Allah. But at the end of the day, God is responsible for all the false religions, including the true religion. He is ultimately responsible for that, whether it's good or evil. And I think Christians believe in that too as well.
You got it. And then with that, folks, I want to make sure that we get the debaters out of here at a decent time, especially because my guess is you guys are in a later time zone than I am. I'm in Pacific time.
Mhm.
So if you guys are in,
Okay.
where are you guys? Remind me again. You
I'm
guys,
Eastern time zone.
I'm in Tampa,
you're
Florida.
in you're in Eastern time, so that means it's like
Yeah.
11:30 for you, and
Yeah,
then
it's 11:30 for me right now. Yeah.
holy smokes.
Yeah.
We got to let these guys go. So, folks, sorry, I know there were more questions. I tried to pin it in chat to say that we could not take any more questions after that certain time. So, sorry, we're not going to get to those questions. I do want to get these guys out of here so they can get a decent rest. But want to say, find our guests in the links in the description box. Both Fearless Truth and Nadir are linked in the description box, as well as the description box for the podcast. If you're listening to this over there, find out more on their views by clicking on their links below. But thank you so much, Fearless Truth and Nadir, for being with us.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
I'll be back in a moment, folks, so stick around. I'll be letting you know about upcoming debates. And here I am, actually, even quicker. Poor guys. This so sometimes I forget. I'm in Pacific time, so it's only 8:30 for me. So these guys, huge credit to our guests for staying this late, as it was 11:30 for both of them. So do want to say, do check out both Nick and Nadir's links in the description box. What are you waiting for? And I'm going to refresh so that the description box has their updated links. So first, thanks so much for your support. We are at 786 likes, which means we only need 14. Actually, just jumped to 788. So we only need 12 likes, and then we'll get to 800, which is symbolic of the T800, which is my favorite Terminator model. If you haven't yet, hit that like button. We do appreciate that support. Don't smash it. Just a tap. Just because we want to reuse it again. We want to reuse the like button for future debates. So just don't destroy it. Just a tap will do. But I want to say thank you guys for your support. I've got to tell you, we are excited about the future. Zootopia says, "Why did you end it early?" Well, we went for 2.5 hours, and it was 11:30 in their time zone, 11:30 p.m. So we do want to let them get some rest. So want to say that's right. The drunken mage says foot pick. That's right. We did promise if we get to 800 likes, exotic spidas in chat will send his feet pics, which I understand. Nasty guy. Definitely avoid him. But at the same time, do hit that like button anyway. You don't have to open the email that he sends with the feet pics. But everybody in chat, we just hit 803. Thank you for your support. We are at 803 likes. 805, amazing. So that's actually how many feet pics you get in your email inbox. As many likes as we get, that's how many feet pics you'll get. So you don't have to open the email. I mean, I know some of you out of curiosity are going to, but I wouldn't recommend it. Exotic spiders, he's a nasty guy. He's going to jail. But want to say thank you guys for your support. Kenneth Smith 1365, thank you for your super chat. Sorry that we let the guests go already. Is Moto Matmat says you skipped my super chat. No, I actually did. I read your super chat kind of twice because it was basically the one on whether or not it was on whether or not Satan was urinating in a specific way. So a specific place, I should say. I did read it, and so Nadir, I did press him to try to engage with it. So I don't I kind of read it twice because I know so. But I want to say thank you guys for your support. We're at 809 likes. Thank you for that. But also, I feel like I can hear like an alarm or something. Yeah, it's a car alarm. It drives me nuts. But I have to tell what doesn't drive me nuts, or at least maybe you could say it drives me nuts in a good way, is I've got to tell you, we have this big, beautiful Facebook page. It has links from, or I'm going to put that link in the top of the live chat. And then you can also find that in the description box. Is check out our Modern Day Debate Facebook page. That is where we upload clips of our debates, but more importantly, that's where you'll get updates about Modern Day Debate's official conference, DebateCon, which is happening this summer. It's going to be very soon. We're going to announce the date that it will be. So that's going to be huge. Very excited for that. Want to say, though, thank you guys for your support in all the different ways. You might have a friend who likes these types of debates. Share this debate with them. What are you waiting for? If you have a friend who's interested in this subject matter, maybe a friend from church, maybe a friend from if you're in an atheist group or a Muslim group, wherever, and you're like, oh, like never actually shared this, you can say, hey, if you love debates and you love this subject matter, check out Modern Day Debate. We do appreciate that, because it's one thing if I say it, it's not as meaningful. People are like, of course you would say it, James, you run Modern Day Debate. But if you say it, it is more meaningful. So send it in a Facebook message, a Facebook DM, an Instagram DM, a Twitter DM, or send it in a text message. You can click that share button below. YouTube will give you a convenient, handy little link there. And want to say, though, like I said, we definitely appreciate our guests. Is these guys are the lifeblood of the channel. If it was just me debating myself every night, you would punch yourselves in the face. That's how bad it would be. But I've got to tell you, we've got big stuff coming up. So, in particular, 1 week, I don't know, it's 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, we'll have Nathan Thompson versus ADHD Projects on Flat versus Globe. Nathan Thompson, who's been coming on for like 6 years. So that will be a big debate, maybe 5 years. Then we have Big John Steele versus Nadir Ahmed. Nadir will return. That's actually a week from today. And that will be on what was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha immoral. That will be controversial. You don't want to miss it. It is going to melt faces. Then Kent Hovind returns. He'll be taking on Dr. Greg. So check out Dr. Kent Hovind, Dr. Greg and Kent Hovind. That debate is going to be huge. I've got to tell you, we've got all sorts of cool stuff. I'm just so excited about DebateCon 8 because it's so close to being booked. It's really close. So that is epic. So if you are like James, I want to hear more about that. I've got to tell you, our insiders list, I'm going to pin that at the top of the live chat, you can get discount codes for DebateCon, and it will also let you know when and where DebateCon 8 is going to happen. As DebateCon 8 is going to be, I'm telling you, we're working hard to make sure that this conference is as big as it gets. So thank you guys for your support that way. Want to say hello to you there in the old live chat. Mari 1282, thanks for being a member. Jamie Henderson 6387, thanks for being a member. Grumble Snort, thanks for being an amazing member. Leia Bobea, thanks for being an amazing member. And Yeti Spaghetti 33, thanks for being an amazing supporter and member. ALCCCCCC, thank you for being a member. And let me see here. We caught up on members. Thank you guys for your support that way. Now I'm going to let you know. Oh yeah, the link. Here it is. Thanks for your patience. So DebateCon 8 this summer, join our insiders list. That's pinned at the top of the live chat. Is basically it's like our email list. We don't send emails very often. Like basically it's like one per conference. So we will send it. We'll say, hey, DebateCon 8 is going to be in this city on this date. Here's a coupon code so you can get a discount off the tickets. And basically, there you go. That's how it works. So that's a pretty cool trick, is that you're not going to get bombarded with emails. It's like, so in other words, it's just one per conference. We usually do 2 conferences a year. Maybe we'll do 3 if we're really rolling. And so highly encourage you to check that out. Now, let me pull this up. So I've got a quick upload, but want to say, tell me where you're listening from, because I am curious where you guys are listening from. I am actually in Los Angeles right now. I'm just outside of Los Angeles. This is a temporary stint. Ooh, I just saw one of our debates. Okay, basically, temporary stint out here in Los Angeles, and I am enjoying it. It's nice weather, and I'm also hoping to film a big, beautiful recording, basically 5 Christians versus 5 non-Christians. And I'm going to fix that. There we go. That is going to be epic. We're very excited to give that the old college try. Now, let me share other cool stuff about you. If you like Discord, do you have a Discord? First, I have just pinned at the top of the live chat the Modern Day Debate Discord. Check that out, as we are excited. It's got over 15,000 members join the debate arena. It's going to be amazing. It is. This one from, I think I shared the Facebook page. I can't remember. I'm like 99% sure. But I got to tell you, yeah. Facebook page. Then one I'm going to do this next one is, oh yeah, if you want to be participant in this 5-on-5 discussion with 5 Christians and 5 non-Christians, I'm going to pin that in the live chat as well. And then let's see, D Jules is listening in from Texas. Thanks for being with us from Texas. It must be, let's see, so you're 2 hours ahead of me, so about 10:30. And Exotic Spiders, he's going to jail. Grumble Snort says, I'm in northeastern PA. Wow. It's probably not too cold. I heard it's not too bad. Like, I can't remember who I talked to just today. I talked to Elle from Ohio, and she said it's like nice. It was like 70 degrees in Ohio. So Pennsylvania, I know, is close to Ohio. I'm trying to remember. Do they touch each other? That seems like I don't think they'd be that close, but I might be wrong. Ohio is, wow, yeah, they do. PA is it's a sizable state. It's got some horizontal mass. But yes, thank you guys for your support. And Exotic Spiders is from Ohio. ALCCCCC is from Earth. Jamie Henderson from Oklahoma. Is that what you're saying? Silicon Valley for Inky 231. Wow. Leia Bobea from East Tennessee. Amazing. And then let me go here. Jasper says you skipped my question. No, Jasper, I definitely asked your question. That's the thing. Some of you guys, Jasper, I definitely asked because I remember reading the name Jasper. I was like, you don't see that very often. No, maybe you submitted a second one that I missed, but if you submitted only one question, I definitely read it because I remember thinking, I was like, Jasper, you don't see that question very often. Jamie is in Oklahoma. That's where my dad got his pharmacist degree. And Exotic Spiders says Texas, Georgia, Ohio. That's funny. I got the joke. And the joke is something that you guys probably wouldn't know if you didn't. Exotic Spiders and I listen to a lot of prank phone call soundboard pranks. It's very childish. I have to grow up, but it's very funny. And that's where his like his reference is from. But yes, we are going to go through the other housekeeping stuff here. Oh, yeah, yeah. So if you would like to participate in that five Christians versus five non-Christians, those could be atheists, those could be Muslims, they could be anybody. I've just put that in the live chat. Keith is from Oklahoma. Hmm. And let's see here. I'm getting tired. Oh, man. I used to be I used to be really, I'm 39 now. And I used to be like in my 20s, especially, but I would say, I feel like even up until I was like 35, and I kind of feel like, how long ago was this? I used to be like more energized in the evening, where normally like right now, but I guess, it's also been almost 3 hours of streaming, but I used to feel like I was like more sharp and energized in the nights, but I don't like, whatever. I'm getting old. I've grown old. If you know what movie uh that quote is from, I'll be impressed. I can give you a hint. It's free on YouTube Movies right now. It's one of my favorite movies. Now, our channel memberships. I should plug this. Is that you guys check out our channel memberships. Click the join button down below. Check out our memberships. These are amazing with epic perks. Highly encourage you. Duck on Quack says James is always tired. It's kind of true. I feel like, but it's that I usually I try to work all day. Like I try to work during the day is what I'm saying. So I try to get up and do like a 9 to 5. And so when I do this, it's like it's not like, oh, I've been like resting today for this. I have to be honest, like I don't do a great job of resting during the day. I usually try to work during the day. And so maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I truly don't know. Now, our channel membership perks are at the link in the quoted chat that I've pinned at the top of the chat. But then also you can just click the join button and check those out. They said the quote is from Secondhand Lions. No, it's actually from, I can't even remember. Now I'm tired, Duck on Quacks. I'm losing it. Mm, oh, it's from the movie True Grit with, I think it's with Jeff Bridges. Bridges. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's so good. It's a really good movie. It's free right now on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen True Grit with Jeff Bridges, and I think it has Josh Brolin. Um, but it has Matt Damon, who I gotta be honest, I don't usually like I don't have anything against Matt Damon, like, but I don't. I usually just haven't liked his movies as much. I can't think of it because it's more that the Born Identity movies, they just never really gripped me. What have those got on Rotten Tomatoes? Because I just never felt like they were like. I had friends that were like, "Oh, they're so good," and I'm like, "Well, they're not bad," but I just don't. Let me check here. Enable ads. Oh, like Rotten Tomatoes is so pushy sometimes. Continue without days. Like, yeah, leave me alone. Is it Rotten Tomatoes? I'm gonna look this up. Born Identity. I never really got those. I never got into those movies. My friends were like, "Oh, they're so good though." Wow, so the audience score is 93%. So that makes me think I should go back and rewatch it. Because I'm thinking I usually kind of agree with the audience score. So if they give it 93, that's pretty high. Shawshank Redemption, which is like one of my favorite. Uh that has to be like a 90. It deserves a 100, but it's 98. So if there's only a 5 point difference, it makes me think it must be my problem. I must have just, I bet it was that I just didn't give it a fair chance. So I will have to go back and watch The Bourne Identity. But was it The Bourne? Then I know there's like, oh, there's a Jason Bourne movie too. There's just called Jason Bourne. Then there's The Bourne Ultimatum, The Bourne Legacy, The Bourne Supremacy, Bourne Identity, Bourne Ultimatum. Is Bourne Ultimatum the second one? Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT. So, um, actually, I'm not. I'm too tired. But want to say thank you guys for your story. So maybe I'll have to go back to that. But I do love Matt Damon in the movie True Grit. So if you're looking for something to do tonight, and if you have not, have you really not seen True Grit? Folks, check it out. But I have got to rest, so I'm gonna rest. Thank you guys for all your support. We are excited about the future. Modern day debate is going places. We're doing big things. DebateCon 8 is going to be amazing. But yeah, thank you guys for your support. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. We will see you at the next debate.